Hey, how's it going, guys? Zimzilla back again, once again, and we're popping off with 4 viewers. I think that's the most viewers I have started a stream with. Welcome, everybody. I think probably the reason everyone is super excited about joining this stream is the fact that we're going to be talking a little bit about the Godzilla Day and the fallout, as well as just what we got to see from that. Yeah. What's up, my man? Vilga. And there's Brandon. And for those who don't know, Brandon is a painter. He actually, at the moment, he has a Godzilla 84 figure that he'll be shipping out to me, and I will be showing that off. So if, again, you are interested in getting custom paint jobs done for figures, definitely look him up. Skull King Ghidorah is another one of the names that he goes by, and look him up, give him money, just like you can give me money. Coffee link is in the description. Every little bit helps, of course. But Godzilla Day, just in general, so it was really awesome. Just outside of the fact that the stream beforehand, before the day proper, it was nice to see not just the Godzilla versus Gigan Rex animated short, but also the Tokusatsu Godzilla versus Gigan video as well. The one thing I want to say first off when it comes to that is just the detail in terms of how much better it was in comparison to the Godzilla versus Hedorah one from the year before. It really makes me hopeful for the fact that if like profits are doing well for Toho and they see that people are really like the live action stuff we do every anniversary, then maybe there keeps on being a steady increase in terms of budget for these shorts, so that they just keep on getting better and better, because it was very much a noticeable increase in quality between both the Hedorah versus the Gigan one. And since we already know for a fact that the next sort of big anniversary is coming up, which I will show the pictures of, it does make me wonder. So we'll get into that first. I'm going to also be sending out some links to a few people because, of course, can't stream by myself. But yeah, so we already see both Jet Jaguar and Megalon have their 50th anniversary design labels here. And the fact that we're seeing both Jet Jaguar and Megalon 50th anniversaries makes me wonder, will we see a new Jet Jaguar suit and a new Megalon suit? Considering the fact that obviously they were the new characters for their films, is it going to be a Jet Jaguar versus Megalon short, or will it be a Godzilla versus Megalon short with Jet Jaguar? It does make me wonder, not to mention the fact that although we haven't gotten a new Godzilla suit since they used the Final War suit again for the Gigan short, will we just keep on getting new Showa monster suits? Because if that does so happen to be the case, we'll have a new Gigan suit, a new Megalon suit, a new Jet Jaguar suit. Will we get a just keep on getting like King Caesar, new Anguirus, new Mechagodzilla? It does make you wonder. But of course, once the Showa films get done with, it's going to be obviously some time between 84 and Terror Mechagodzilla. So will we have to wait until we get a new 84 Godzilla design, or suit, I should say, to coincide with that 50th anniversary, or will it just kind of stop with the Showa monsters? Those are just sort of the questions that you're always going to have in the back of your mind. We could see CG animation of Godzilla versus Megalon or Jet Jaguar. Yeah, no, it's definitely possible. We could just see, instead of a live action thing, it might just be a another animated short, or they might do something where a team who's working on something Megalon and Jet Jaguar related gets to work on something for Toho, because I wouldn't be surprised if they keep on trying to top every Godzilla Day one after the other. So in result of that, it's sort of like we had this animated short and we had a live action thing, we'll probably get 2 animated shorts, or just sort of find a good amount of status quo that is manageable for them. And I think what they did here is going to be the new standard, hopefully. Um, I don't like. I'm not one who's gonna want to be like, oh, just keep doing this, and that. Doing something that I believe conservatively will not only be acceptable for the fans to have, but also um, be within line of Toho to do is what I believe is the best thing that can be done for days like this. And then, of course, outside of the fact that there was the live stream that was going on, there was also the fact that a bunch of theaters with Fathom events had Godzilla against Mechagodzilla showing off in a bunch of places. So that was like really cool that I got to see another Godzilla movie on the big screen that wasn't at G Fest. So, and not just the fact that I got to see a Godzilla movie like outside of my house in a like place where other people can go. I got to meet some new people. This guy right here, Civilico, he is one of them. It was really nice to talk to him, and him and another guy were there as well. Not gonna reveal names and stuff. Don't want to dox people and all that kind of nonsense. But they were cool. It was awesome to meet people and match that energy, and just sort of go and have something that's important to you be shared by people in a context that's not online. Of course, we all appreciate our online relationships, but there is always that different feeling. But there was one thing this happened specifically at my theater. I know it didn't happen at others, so this is probably something that would need to be changed for a case-by-case basis. And it was the fact that when it came to getting the film proper, the movie theater we were at did not have the film. They had put in a delivery apparently for the day of, and it had not come in at this point. So we were in the theater and we were waiting, and so was everyone else. And I'm not sure if this was the guy who ran the theater or he was just the manager on charge, was essentially just reassuring us and saying, oh, if we don't get it, we'll refund you guys. And at that point, it was sort of like, I had no problem staying and sort of chatting with the people there. And just sort of letting that be the night. Oh, well, maybe they can try better next year. But we did get the film. But what we were expecting was just Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. What ended up happening was got to see the Godzilla versus Hedorah short from last year, along with the making of that short, which does make me wonder if this is going to be something that happens every year. Will we see the shorts from the year prior being shown off before a new film, talking about the making of that, and then the movie that it's also the anniversary of? Because if that happens, we do know that Tokyo SOS comes out will be the anniversary of Tokyo SOS for next year. So will we see the Gigan short shown off in the theater for the event the following year, and then the making of that short, and that just kind of becomes another thing? Like, there's a lot of things that could be set up for precedents that we don't necessarily know will be the case, but I hope could be the case. Because like, it was really awesome that we did get to see the movie in theaters. I think it kind of sucked that there was like, an issue getting it. However, I would say maybe not getting it would have been better than what happened at other theaters, because I know someone else I know went to a different theater and the quality of their film was much worse compared to the one I went to. So I think even just like what different theaters were given apparently might have been different, or just the equipment theaters were using were different, because I heard vastly different things in terms of quality. Some I heard said it sounded great, visuals were nice, crisp, and it went off without a hitch. They started on time. Others said it didn't start on time and they had to wait, and the film was fine. And the other times it started on time, but the film looked really, really bad, and there was a lot of jumping issues. So like, that's something Toho or whoever was in charge of distributing out the film to these various movie theaters would kind of need to be aware of, because I know, like, obviously this doesn't happen a lot. So a lot of people who probably wanted to go and see the film on theater were gonna stay, but maybe some people who like were like, oh cool, Godzilla movie, let's go see it, and then like it doesn't happen, and they're like, oh, well, okay, and then they just leave, and that kind of ruins an impression for them. Like on the big day for Godzilla, something bad happens and nothing can be done. Um, it just sort of impressions are always going to be the most important thing, I believe, and just sort of improving on that is what I believe is important, especially on a day like Godzilla Day. But I also just sent out the link to a few people who said they wanted to join up, and we're just going to be waiting on that as well. But in the meantime, when it comes to the John Carpenter thing, because that's also on the thumbnail. So John Carpenter had a big thing when it came to Godzilla, and specifically the American Godzillas. So we'll bring up his little stints here. And it's specifically this line right here where it says, what do you think of the American Godzilla movies? And the reason John Carpenter is related to Godzilla recently was because he did a commentary with a few of the old Toho films. And I believe that these were said during this, or they were done in an interview post hoc or before then. But what he says here, and I'll read it for you guys, it says, oh, well, the first one was horrifying. It's pretty good. It's a spectacle. They just don't have the same charm of the original Godzilla movies. The cast of the Godzilla movies, even though they brought over old has-been actors to be in it, the actors were great. I guess most of them were under contract at Toho. American Godzilla movies are a computer fest. They lack charm, and I'm not that interested. So, I think when it comes to his thoughts, and a lot of people are comparing his sort of statement to Scorsese's thing about Marvel films not really being cinema. And there's going to be a video we're going to be watching in a few minutes that kind of goes in and talks about this. And I think that some people are probably thinking, oh, well, he's disrespecting the American Godzilla movies. And I think a lot of people who are fans of the MonsterVerse films in particular kind of take exception to this. And I think because like everyone kind of shits on the MonsterVerse, that there's always going to be a little bit of a backlash there. But what he says here is they lack charm. Anytime CGI is brought up, it's oftentimes put in a negative perspective. And I think that largely has to do with the fact that we like practical effects, not only because there's obviously a little bit more life to them because there is something in front of the screen, and therefore you don't have to simulate as much to make it appear real because it is there. It's just a matter of getting it to move right. And although obviously that never always happens and there's going to be issues, I think it's because of the fact that despite some things not always going directly to plan when it comes to practical effects, the effort being put in and the fact that it's impressive that you were able to make something actually there in front of the screen do what you're doing adds to this idea or this concept of charm, as it were. Like the fact that we have puppets that we take like long, super long takes of just one picture after the other of a puppet moving along the screen for what we have with stop motion. People find charm in that because you're making something that inherently cannot move on its own without you putting your hands on it. And then doing that, and no one sees your hands there because of the fact that you were paying so much attention to detail and creating something like this. It just makes you wonder. And it does bring like awe to you when it comes to stuff like that. And that's just in case with stop motion. I think with suitmation, it's the same thing where you're having someone in a suit and you're able to hide that silhouette of a person inside a monster suit and be around these miniatures, which will oftentimes have tremendous level of detail added to them. And that just makes you wonder like how someone could do something like that or think of to do something like that. And when we know more what we do now when it comes to what it was like inside the suits, especially the old Godzilla suit, there's a little bit more respect given to the craft there. While in the case of CGI, there is a tremendous amount of effort and skill that needs to be done when it comes to making models, rigging them up, and making them move in a realistic manner. I think that because so much of it can be dismissed because of what can be seen as an easier way of going about your effects. Like you don't have to worry about too much injury. You don't have to worry about lighting or certain kinds of materials, not playing well with other things. Like a good example of this is the animatronic T-Rex from Jurassic Park. The first one had a lot of issues getting wet, and that entire sequence with the animatronic is it getting wet. So the amount of effort they had to do to dry this down, to make sure the animatronic worked right and that it wouldn't like have issues during takes, speaks to just a level of dedication and this word, which I think is kind of nebulous at this point, that's charm. And I think also everyone's just entitled to their own opinion. Like, I don't think necessarily people have to like everything, and I think someone just being like, I'm not that interested, is a perfectly valid thing to say when it comes to anything, when it comes to whether you like it or not. But since I just need to stop here and then I'm going to share some audio, we're going to go over the actual video I was referring to. And that is this right here. The video is by C Animus. He's got 300 subs. I wanted to get him onto a stream because he's actually, let me bring it up here this way. He is the YouTuber who I hope, please tell me his videos do not get taken down. We'll do it this way, yeah. So he did this series. He did the Godzilla King of the Monsters, A Great Joy video. And as you see, there's a lot of parts which added up to a 2-hour long video. And considering the fact that like that's 2 hours, I think that probably just to hear his thoughts in a way instead of just a 2-hour response video or something like that, just getting him on to talk shop about some of his ideas and questioning them in some ways I think would be appropriate. But specifically, I wanted to use this video he did called John Carpenter's Comments Can Be Dismissed and sort of piggyback on sort of my thoughts and sort of responding to his own. So let's get into it. And hopefully the stream doesn't get taken down. So for those who are new, the last stream I did got taken down because of I looked at another person's video and they had Godzilla clips on them, and those are what got me taken down. And I went through the appeal process. The Toho clips, specifically the Gigan short clip, that's one of the things I got copyrighted for. That got appealed, and that's fine. But it was the legendary clips which my appeal was not accepted, and it was reinforced, which is absolutely hilarious that the claimant says it's not blocked everywhere, but essentially everywhere that matters. So it's blocked in the US, so you can't watch it from there, and it's absolutely silly. But I find it funny that Legendary and Warner Brothers were a little bit more stringent about their copyright than Toho of all people. But enough dilly-dally, let's get into this video right here. Yay! Ads! I love the fact when I have a video preset and there's already ads there that come back on again.
Hello!
Hello!
I hope everyone had a happy Godzilla day yesterday.
I did.
At the time of recording. A new Toho Godzilla film was announced for 2023 with a logo that either looks like a H.R. Geiger art piece or a coffee stain that someone thought looked cool. Add this to the legendary Godzilla film coming 2024, the Monarch TV series coming at some point, and Godzilla turning up in a computer game, and things are looking pretty peachy for fans of the Big G. Then I logged on to Twitter and saw this. Yeah, as someone who spent Yogg-Sothoth knows how long putting together my King of the Monsters video, I can safely say I was annoyed. This looked like John Carpenter was having a Martin Scorsese moment, and no one should have a Martin Scorsese moment. For those that don't know, Scorsese said Marvel films aren't cinema and are more like amusement rides.
And of course, I think the issue with Scorsese's point is I think that a lot of it's very hyperbolic with what he says, but I also believe that there is some point to what Scorsese says. However, I think that it needs more time than just a few words from a famous filmmaker. And of course, we could get into the craft of the Marvel movies, the fact that a lot of it has become extremely formulaic. A lot of their ideas and their world building aren't exceptionally well fleshed out now. The issue of a lot of misplaced comedy, stuff like that. But that's not going to be really portrayed or even well executed in a couple words like, oh, Marvel movies aren't cinema. But because it's a lot more easier to get someone to sort of click on or respond to what you're saying if you're a little bit more, not necessarily edgy, but just riveting, you could say, or just controversial, is by saying it just Marvel movies aren't cinema. Let's keep going.
Basically, old man shouts at cloud because he preferred the one that just went by. Reading Carpenter's quote reminded me of this, especially the Computer Fest line. After an initial
John Carpenter must be sent to the void
moment, I went and read through the article to get a more informed opinion. Having done so, I can safely say that in context it isn't as bad as at first glance, but it's still bad, just for other reasons. Here's what the article said. What do you think of American Godzilla movies? Boy, well, the first one was horrifying. It's pretty good, it's a spectacle, they just don't have the same charm as the original Godzilla movies, the cast of the Godzilla movies. Even though they brought over old has-been American actors to be in it, the actors were great. I guess most of them were under contract at Toho. American Godzilla movies are a computer fest. They lack charm, and I'm just not that interested. In the interview, Carpenter...
It's like a weird mix of a drunk guy and like someone who is from Texas, or someone who's never been to Texas and is trying to emulate a Texan accent without essentially making that the stereotypical American accent. But I guess points for not just doing a cowboy voice.
Carpenter gushes over the old monster films like Godzilla, Rodan, the Gargantuas, and Gorgo. It's all light-hearted stuff, full of praise. It's only this one section where Carpenter becomes overly negative. There's a part of me that wants to tear into the comment and hold the bloody scraps of it from...
I hope I don't get copyrighted claim for this. Out of all the things, it's like
However,
a Predator
it's
thing.
clear there wasn't a lot of thought or effort put into the answer. It's been a while since I've seen the '98 Godzilla, so take this with a pinch of salt. But considering the actors they got for the film, I find it hard to believe there was absolutely no charm to be found. I find it even harder to believe when Carpenter compares the likes of Jean Reno, Matthew Broderick, Michael Lerner, and most of the Simpsons cast.
I will say this. Jean Reno does his part well. Matthew Broderick, I think his acting is probably the flattest because he just kind of stands around with a somewhat dumbfounded look on his face throughout most of the film. And due to the fact that he's also just a passive character in general, it really doesn't do him any favors because he's essentially just being like, what? Huh? And then when the film remembers that he is a scientist, he'll say like, oh, something sciencey with that same kind of look on his face. Everyone just kind of agrees with him. And then the next part of the film happens. So, like, I would say John Reno, good. Matthew Broderick, not so good. The cast of The Simpsons, the actor who plays Kamen, did a okay job. I forget the actress who voices Bart. She just plays a small role. And then the fact is that outside of the fact that she's the voice of Bart, she doesn't do a whole lot in the film itself. The guy who plays Animal, he's essentially just played it for comedy, and he does that part well. Is like their charm in that? Sure, I will say that. There is charm in some of the actors' roles like Jean Reno and Hank Azaria. The actress who plays Audrey, not a black hole of charisma, but the character is still exceptionally bad. But she doesn't do a terrible job, but she doesn't do an amazing job. She just does a passable job. And same with almost everyone else in the film. The person who plays Hicks, I forget his name as well. He also plays Sam's father from Transformers. He just does a passable job. And the fact is that just the kind of energy he puts out in his role for Godzilla 98 is just super similar to how he plays Sam's father in a way. So it kind of feels like that is sort of the person he puts on when he acts. So like I think everyone who didn't have like a immediate charisma about them, such as Hank Azaria or Jean Reno, kind of just put in a serviceable job. But I wouldn't say all the roles that were in there, especially when it comes to like their leading character, Nick, were all that charming.
To what Carpenter described as old has-beens. But it's the last two lines, as seen on Twitter, that really show how important, or not important, this comment is. A computer fest, as Carpenter put it, is another way of saying it's all CGI. And every time I hear someone say that lately, I lose interest in their opinions. Using CGI as a negative descriptor without any other qualifying information shows ignorance on the part of the utterer, which shouldn't be a thing for Carpenter, considering he made a name for himself with films like The Thing, which uses a lot of special effects.
That's a little kind of wobbly with the language there. The reason I say this is because there was a lot of matte shots that were used in the thing, specifically with like the alien ship. However, almost everything that was done for the thing, especially the practical effects, like I said, they're practical effects. There wasn't really any CG, or at least what I can remember with like the really good shots, especially a lot of the gore, the transformations of the alien, all of that's practical. So if we're talking about special effects and CG, those are two different things. But Carpenter, the got you of him, oh, well, he made a name for himself off the thing. That was all practical effects and not CGI. If we're going to be a little bit more honest, the Thing prequel, the later one, which was also just titled The Thing, that had a lot of CG, and a lot of people had a problem with that because of the fact that it didn't have the same weight or presence that the original did, because all of it was in CG. And again, there's a lot of issues with that, like having to render light properly onto models and making sure like they don't clip through objects or they just move in a way where it feels natural in the scene is going to be a lot harder with CG, and it's going to come off more uncanny with CG versus practical effects, where although the practical effect may not look good, it's not going to have the same kind of issues CGI will.
His apparent disdain for CGI sounds very odd. It sounds very much like an old man hates new things meme. Then Carpenter says that thing, the thing that annoys me so much. I'm just not that interested. When reviewers give crap opinions along with I don't care, it's bloody annoying and shows a complete lack of worthwhile thoughts on their part. But in this case, Carpenter was asked a question, so he had to give an answer. What he didn't have to do was echo those very annoying reviewers and throw out a load of nonsense before saying he didn't care.
Well, he never said he didn't care. He said he wasn't interested. Not caring and not having an interest are two different things. I don't think he's even echoing other critics, because he can be under the exact same opinion as them. And I don't think he has any reason to be influenced by other critics, especially when his career isn't all that like connected to CGI. And let's pull up The Thing again for an example. He, like, one of the films he's known for the most, used practical effects for the majority, if not all, of the best shots of that film. So it's weird to say that he's mimicking or aping what other people have said. And because he's just not that interested, giving a nondescript answer to something that you are asked and are having to answer makes sense, because sometimes people don't like something and they're not going to put a whole lot of thought into why they don't like it. I think that's natural, and a lot of people usually are like that. It's very rare, and it's more a product of video essayists and YouTube, where a lot more now people are having to explain in great detail why they don't like something. And I think a lot of times people who are having to give an answer will need to say why they don't like something in great and coherent detail, because of course they're going to be advocating for something better. But in Carpenter's case, he's not saying, oh well, the Summation and Tokusatsu is just inherently superior to the CGI fest. He's talking about charm, and charm is definitely one of those things where we'd have to then break down what does he mean by charm, and then be like, okay, so this is what he means by having greater quality than something else. So like we have to break it down, and from what he's given for something that clearly he doesn't have a whole lot of interest in, the answer given is not the worst thing in the world.
Saying a film lacks charm is subjective and entirely up to the beholder. Saying CGI and
Well, it's definitely subjective, and he was also asked what does he think, not are the new Godzilla films, like the new American ones, good or bad. He's just asking. He's been given his thoughts, and therefore a subjective opinion is perfectly valid for this question being asked.
bad shows ignorance of the craft, and finishing with I don't care shows a lack of intellectual integrity. Listen to Carpenter talk about the films he likes. Listen to his passion and love for them, and take pleasure in his gushing over them. Also listen to his criticisms about the films he doesn't like, as this old cinematic hand
Again, I think the issue here is that Animus is prescribing not just the fact that he thinks these films are bad, but also that he doesn't like them. Someone could say a film with CGI is a computer fest. That doesn't necessarily mean that the film is overall bad or an objectively bad film. But at least to a person who prefers practical effects, them subjectively disliking that is a perfectly valid response, especially to someone who's asking for their opinion, not a answer about the quality of something, or even asking further, oh, what do you mean by a CGI fest? It's clearly a just one-off kind of answer.
theoretically has a lot of important information to share. But no matter who is giving an opinion, always listen for the markers of ignorance. Give the man his due, but in this particular case, just like so many others, Carpenter can have his opinion quite easily dismissed.
And I think that's fair. Yeah, you can obviously dismiss opinions that are ignorant. However, I don't even think that he's trying to specifically claim to be an authority in this circumstance. He's being asked a question, and I think if he said, well, if you look at the old films, they were just so much better, and just the quality of old Summation from the 50s the modern CGI just can't compare. Computer fest like this, if there was more things we could prescribe in terms of intent to the statement, there I would probably agree with the sentiment more. But because of the fact that we don't know a whole lot about what he really means behind some of the words used, I cannot say, oh, well, it's just ignorance, or, oh, this is like he's trying to sell us off as objective, or something that should be taken as such because of his pedigree as a director. And I think that the issue lies squarely with the people who reported on it. And because they knew that this would make people have clicks and make videos, that's why they kind of led with it. And especially, let's actually just go back and look at the thing. There's so many other questions that are being asked that have nothing to do with the American Godzilla films, that clearly he's just being fed these questions, and then he's just answering honestly or as simply as possible, because he's not going to be able to answer in a long drawn out discussion about like the merits of these things. But let's just finish up the video and give its due.
Thank you for watching this quick video expressing my thoughts
You're welcome.
on Carpenter's thoughts. Hopefully this video will help to dull any annoyance his comments conjured up in Godzilla fans.
I don't think necessarily a lot of Godzilla fans were angry. I think probably a lot of MonsterVerse fans would be angry specifically because a lot of people don't like the MonsterVerse films, and therefore that just kind of develops a kind of certain response that's always very, very defensive. And I think that in a lot of ways it is justified, but in other ways it can be used ineffectively because you don't win yourself friends by responding the way you do sometimes. And I think it's reasonable in certain contexts. But I think in this case, when it comes to a lot of people responding to a celebrity's comments on something, this is very measured and it's not the worst thing in the world. I think that there's a little bit too much intent being prescribed to what he said, when in reality we should just take a step back and look at like the context of why he said these things in this specific instance. There's a lot of fish. There is a lot of fish. About to see this man get taken down again. Thank God. I am so happy that there was nothing wrong with the stream, and I was so scared about losing the Predator. The Predator clip being the one thing that kills the channel. And what's up, Matt? But we are not alone now. We have a second. And welcome on the Vic, also known as Defender. We're not gone. My stream did not die from
that's good.
Little Predator clip. Like, I think the one thing that will forever haunt me is the fact that it's not Toho that killed that live stream. It's it was Legendary. Maybe I should call the Legendary Films Computer Fest just because of the fact that they took down my video. But how are you doing, my man?
Doing good.
Awesome. How was your screening? Because I think you also went to see Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, right?
Yep.
Did yours have any issues at all? Or actually, I'll give you the floor. Explain to the audience like how your screening went, because I went into a little detail about how mine had gone.
It went pretty good. Yeah. No problems. I mean, there was one thing where like the subtitles were like a little cut off. In the bottom, towards the bottom, like it didn't fit the screen. Other than that, like everything was pretty fine. Like we had no issues, no troubles, and it was a pretty good turnout too. Like lots of Godzilla fans got to chat with some people. My girlfriend really liked it. We had fun, and just a blast.
And like you didn't have any like yours started on time too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting because some theaters got theirs way ahead of time and were able to be fine with it, while others did not. However, I will say this, because apparently since you said the subtitles kind of clipped on yours, so ours did not have that issue, and that would be kind of funny if the reason why we got such a late copy, kind of saved our screening, so we didn't have as many issues when it came to our viewing of the film, because I did not see any subtitles and I did not experience the same kinds of like quality issues that a lot of other people had when it came to the film, although that may also just come down, like I said, to the theaters that they were a part of.
Yeah, I think it was probably something with the projector or how they were showing it, because like towards the middle it like cut off a little bit, but like outwards it was like normal.
Like when you said like it cut off for a little bit, like was it like midway through the film or something, or was it more like a
I noticed it more for like the preview for Hedora and the behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, like some of the subtitles were like clipped like towards like the middle bottom.
Gotcha.
And then like a little bit for the movie, but it wasn't that much of a problem.
That might have come down to just the what's it called? That like video just not being done in the same ratio as the movie, and then that just kind of being formatted weirdly. That could have been the issue, most likely. I know ours did not have the same issue, which might have just come down to the screen size for ours. Because like, was yours in like a larger theater, or was yours in a smaller one?
Yeah, pretty large one. The AMC, my local AMC.
Okay, so yours is in an AMC. Mine was in a Regal theater. And then I think someone out, like the person who had a lot of issues, they went to a Showcase, I believe. So it might have just been an issue with certain theaters having different setups and that kind of being the big cause, maybe.
Yeah.
But we have another person because it's gonna be a 3-way stream tonight. We may get a fourth, but I'm not sure if he'll be able to join. And it is a potato. Say hello, potato.
Hello. Hello, can you
Hello.
hear me?
I can hear you just
Yep.
fine, my man.
All right, good.
But obviously, since this is the first time you're on the stream, say hello to the audience and just give a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I am Potato. I just like making monsters for fun. I've been doing it since like at least middle school, and I honestly don't know how I ended up here.
Yeah, like I think when did we? Because I know we've talked for quite a bit now. When was like the first time we kind of got into communications? Because I knew you before I knew like Vic, for example.
I don't know. At least like maybe 3 years.
I think it's been longer than 3 years because I think I knew you back when I was still in high school. Because 3 years ago, I would have still been in college 3 years ago. Although maybe it might have been 3 years ago, and I have no sense of time, and I am going senile already. But
You won't be the first one to say that.
I think the younger generations are all going senile even faster. It's the doom for the human race. But since I now also have you here, and I think it's going to be now appropriate for us to discuss, and that is the new Godzilla movie that is coming up. We're going to just do a round table, everyone kind of giving their thoughts about like hopes for the film, because I think everyone's kind of got a certain set of ideas and or hopes. But what we do know, at least with some kind of certainty, it is the fact that it's going to be in post-World War II Japan, and that the person directing it is the same person who is in charge of the Godzilla the Ride and Always Sunset on 3rd Street 2, and that had a Godzilla sequence in it. So obviously, since Potato is the new vegetable on the block, he will be the first one up. So give us your kind of hopes, at least for the film, with what we do know so far.
I kind of feel offended that you called me a vegetable, but I'll forgive you for now. But
Should I call you like a lagoon or a root, a beet?
just call me Potato. My kind is very sensitive about how we're called. You see.
I see. The potatoes are a proud race.
Indeed. Jokes aside, I'm not really sure what to say since I am not really familiar with what his work is outside of, well, Sunset on 3rd Street and the Godzilla Ride. So I can't really give an opinion. All I could really say is that I wonder if this might be focused on like Cold War-esque, since this is post World War II.
It's post World War II, but it's not long enough to where the Cold War is going to have any kind of significance. So like it's not going to be like near like Cuban Missile Crisis time or even like Gorbachev or anything like that. I think it's like essentially around the same era as like 54. Although probably since they're saying it's post World War II, this might be like right around Castle Bravo era time. So like 54, 53-ish time, most likely.
Well, I'm not really sure what to say in that case, since I don't have really any experience in his work to give an opinion. I've heard around that at least for the Japanese side of the fandom, that there are some concerns over his directorial position, as I'm not sure how true this is, that many of his works have been quote unquote feel good movies, which I don't, that's what I've heard. I have no clue if that's true. It probably isn't.
I mean, like, Always on 3rd Street 2, I know that like is a pretty feel good film from what I have seen of it. Like, I've had to look at online outside of just I wanted to know what was going on in the film outside of the Godzilla dream sequence. But I mean, the film is very well constructed, but I guess people are concerned that the idea of a feel good film is going to clash with what we may see with a very destructive Godzilla taking place around the same time as the 54 film. So I guess that's probably going to be like the main issue people are thinking in the Japanese fandom if like feel good is being thrown around.
That might be possible. So might be like the more, it's hard to say really. If for all we know, it might be extremely dark or be a bit more campy and something more like Godzilla Raids Again than 54.
Yeah, and I mean, like even then, Raids Again isn't necessarily all that like feel goody. It's still like it's got
Mm-hmm.
a even tone. I would say is
Well,
the best way to describe it.
what I mean by that is like something that's a little more fun and cheesy instead of well, more serious. I mean, I don't mean like feel good in that case.
Yeah, so like more lighthearted, I guess.
Yeah, I
More like
suppose
a
that's
King Kong vibe, maybe.
yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I would say even that's a little different because with King Kong, that's more of like an adventure-y kind of vibe rather than just like a fun vibe. Because even then, I would say King Kong's got a different vibe to Raids again in that sense. But like, I even with what we do know for us, like as Godzilla fans, the dream sequence has a level of dread to it. Although it does get
Mm-hmm.
kind of silly with the one guy who essentially goes Super Saiyan and yells at Godzilla, but the build up to it and sort of the shots we do get of it does properly sell the danger until we finally get the payoff shot of Godzilla roaring. Which, speaking of Godzilla himself, do you have any thoughts about like what you want to see for this design, or do you want to see a old design return?
Uh, I just want to see him do something different. Let's do something that's not like what you've seen before.
Hmm.
Since if I were to give an example, one of my personal gripes with Godzilla Ultima is that it takes too much from something that's already existed instead of being itself.
Hmm.
And I think that's what I would like to see just in general, something that tries to be itself and not try to lean too much on what's already been established.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I would say some of the weakest aspects of Ultima is when it is aping Shin. I would say like the transformation sequence, although I do like some of the other forms and the monsters they reference, I do think Ultima could have been better if it did not have those transformation sequences. And that because we do know that that sold well with Shin and just kind of was a ploy that was kind of went through on the basis of getting more toys. I think that yeah, definitely I don't want to see another Godzilla design that kind of riffs on Shin, or even I don't want to see something that's kind of similar but distinct from the MonsterVerse designs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But I actually, this is something I'm gonna ask both of you. Do you want to see like obviously we want to see something new and different. Do you want to see do you want to see a new roar as well as like a new like beam at all, or are you just kind of would you be happy
I'll be
if we
down.
kind of got something standard?
I'll be down to see something new. I don't think we will, but I wouldn't be against it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm cool with like a new roar. That would be interesting. Like I have my own ideas for like what roars I'd want to like hear. As for beams, I'm hoping maybe like a beam that's closer in line to like 2014, where it's more fiery napalm like.
Mm-hmm. Like I would say actually, for both this is also for both of you. Would if you had to and they weren't gonna make a new roar, we weren't gonna get a new like beam color, and it was either gonna be like red or blue. What roar would you want to see used, as well as what breath color would you prefer seeing?
I would probably say I would like to see something one more modern roars, like the Millennium roars.
I'd probably want something more like the early Heisei roars and like 54 roars that were more beastly and ferocious.
Yeah, and I would say I'm also on the same boat for that. Is like if I have to use a roar, I would probably say the one I do want is the 84 roar, especially just because it has a deeper kind of bassiness to it. And then like with beams, I would say if I want anything, probably like a blue beam, most likely. Although it would be interesting considering the fact with like Godzilla versus Giga and Rex, the kind of ultimate beam that Godzilla had was white. If we got to see a new white beam as a standard breath, that would be kind of interesting.
Uh,
It technically wouldn't be new though, but
okay, now that you mentioned the white beam, I want to just say this right now.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if this is possible, but I have a feeling that like it's possible, just maybe hypothetically speaking, that beam might be a reference to a short film by Goji fan. What was his name? Goji fan 1990 something something. Eh,
Are you talking about
Um,
Chris?
yeah, in his short film Wrath of the Hybrid.
Hmm.
At the end of the short film, if you don't remember, it was like he somehow got this white beam to defeat the hybrid.
Yeah. I know that I heard someone else say something similar, and then I know someone else has said that it was a 54 callback, although I kind of push back against it being a 54 callback, especially when in most contexts when 54 is colorized, the beam is usually just blue, even though it's very, very misty. But it would be very interesting if a project that was essentially a fan made sort of venture that got officially done by with Toho's approval references another fan made project in a way.
I think that would be a really cool if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's unlikely, but I like to think they did.
Yeah, exactly. And from a few people in the chat, Eric Zilla, who's in the house, says, "You think the Godzilla 2023 film would be similar with the Godzilla half century war comics?" But I know in that the half century war, the first kind of chapter involves the main character who is part of a tank crew that first encounters Godzilla in 1954, and from that, the kind of plot of that first part is them diverting Godzilla's attention and sort of saving lives before Godzilla is brought back out to sea, where he is supposedly killed by the oxygen destroyer. Of course, the Godzilla that appears throughout the entire comic looks exactly the same, so they never really know for a fact, but it is heavily implied in that case. And from what we do see of Half Century War, I could very well see something to that effect, especially since, again, calling back to the Always Sunset, as well as even Godzilla Ride, both of those films that film and that ride both possessed a lot of low angle shots and POVs from human perspectives, from vehicles or just on the ground from a person's perspective. So seeing a tank crew just looking up at Godzilla from that scale would be super interesting for a few shots. But in terms of a fully fleshed out story, considering Half Century War is definitely a comic that suffers from the Avengers syndrome, and by that I mean you're having a lot of well-known faces that appear through a long issue comic series, which happens later on because we get two Mechagodzillas, Space Godzilla appears, Gigan, King Ghidorah, etc., etc. But if we're talking about specifically the one point where it does take place in 54, I believe it's possible because the next kind of part that happens after that in that comic is them in Vietnam and Anguirus shows up is less likely. But I think something to that effect of the first part of that comic could very well happen.
I haven't really read that comic, so I can't really give an opinion on that.
Yeah. It's a very good comic. I recommend anyone pick it up, and especially since it's available in a lot of easy to access stores like Barnes & Noble and stuff. I tell anyone who's a Godzilla fan to pick it up, and if you like comics, give it a whirl if you want to get into Godzilla that way. Brandon says, "Bring back the fog breath." Yeah, it would be kind of cool to see a Godzilla that has a breath that's less lasery and just more foggy, but it would also be kind of cool to see people just kind of start dropping dead from just this mist of radiation just kind of covering them, or just causing things to combust that way, just cars combusting, but people's bodies melting. Even though the beam's not going to be super flashy, the effects of it should compensate for that in a way. I said
they should bring back the power breath, bro.
You're funny. You're very funny. You know that. This is why I keep you around, Vic.
I have no idea which one that is. There are so many breaths.
A power breath's the 98 not atomic breath.
Oh.
Yes. Well, again, I mean, his name kind of says it all. If it's something you don't think, you're not gonna remember. It's probably a 54 reference.
Well, I'm not sure how that would work. How would you visualize a fog breath?
Well, I mean, sort of something similar to 54 when we mean by fog breath.
Nebula from Howl from Beyond the Fog has a fog breath. I like that breath effect.
Yeah. Is there any you guys talk about the atomic breath? I'm gonna see if I can find a clip of Nebula because I do not think that there is any on YouTube where I could actually find for that.
Oh, wait, I got you.
Oh, you do? You have a clip from Howl Beyond the Fog for that?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I will definitely take that then.
And then I actually like a more fog-like breath for Godzilla's, either that or a fiery breath like 2014, like I mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Which even Matt says not breath related, but he does say for the roars, what about a mix between Millennium and Legendary roars? It'll be interesting to see them combined, although unlike the Millennium Roars, which are kind of based more off the Showa roars and kind of meld well with the other Japanese roars, it would be, I wonder just how they could incorporate the two. Because even the Riot Goji just kind of uses Showa roars, or not Showa roars, just Japanese roars in general. So they might just use already existing roars, or they may do a new revision of it. But we'll see. Like even the director he hasn't been like super big on like saying how nostalgic he was for like a certain era of Godzilla. So we may not have to worry about hearing an old roar, because the one thing with Anno was that he very much liked a particular era of Godzilla and wanted to call back specifically to the effects themselves, not just the era. So that's why we got to hear a lot of old sound effects for like tanks, beams, destruction, etc., etc.
I was under the impression that the reason they keep using the old roars is because it just saves time and money.
It saves time and money, yes, but
Mhm.
I also think that a lot of times there's another reason to it, because even with Shin, they use the 54 roar for one stage, then they use the Showa roar for most of fourth form, and then right at the tail end when Shin gets frozen, he uses the 84 roar. So it's a mixture of saving time and money, but then also he wanted to use certain roars for certain
Well,
things.
it's
So,
not just Anno who's doing it. It was like they've all been doing it. The Polygon trilogy, the anime,
I would
all the
say,
rides.
what's it called? I know, especially with the Polygon films, there is definitely modification to that roar. There is more bass added to that, and with Ultima, I know for the most part, I know Terrestrius had modifications to his roar done, and then I know Ultima used a lot of 84's roar, specifically. There it is. Thank you, Vic. And we'll share that to the screen. Preset.
Personally, if you ask me, I would like to see more like Shin's first form of his atomic breath. The Sea of Fire.
Yeah, that would also be pretty interesting as well to
I
see.
think I like that mostly because like it's that awe-inspiring horror type of feeling.
hmm
Like,
Especially because of like how it ignites too,
yeah,
because we do sort of see it as this sort of like smoky material, and then it just erupts. That would be an interesting change to the roar, although it would be essentially a different thing entirely without like the transformation into the real atomic breath. So that made it could just be even a different power altogether. But
oh,
here's
oh, oh, this was the
Nebula's
movie.
roar.
Oh, this movie. Oh,
Yeah,
oh, wait, I don't think I could hear Nebula.
I did not put the sound on. Yeah,
Oh, all right. Man, it's been ages since I watched this movie. I remember it being really good.
yeah, it is good. It's definitely good, and them using puppets for the film
Mhm.
is also very impressive. But yeah, no, with this here, especially since this is going to be taking place in a post World War II Japan, it's going to be a Japan with a smaller cityscape. So a breath that's less flashy could very much work in this case. And just even how it exits from the mouth, it would fit. I think it could definitely fit in the setting of the new film, without a doubt.
And if we're gonna talk about scale, like how big would you want this Godzilla to be in the film?
That's they could do whatever they want with that. They could make him bigger than Legendary. They could make him the average size. That's up in the air.
They totally could, although I would say it would depend on the story too, because you could justify a very huge size based on what you're gonna do. Although, for me, if I was gonna be more conservative about it, I guess I would say I would want him to be either one of the shortest Godzillas at something like 35 meters at least, and at most I want him to be 80 meters at most. Although most likely, 50 meters would be what I would say is most likely,
Yeah, I
especially
like that
because since
range.
it's like post World War II. It's most likely going to be the case that it's going to be 50 meters. But anyone else like kind of stuck to a certain size range for they would want, or not really?
I can't really say. At
Mhm.
least at least like 50 to 100 meters. I would like to see him try to be bigger than Legendary just for fun, but it's too little to know for certain.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because like when I think about it, there isn't too many buildings that reach that height, especially in a post World War II Japan, where like if you're having a Godzilla so big, you're gonna have to have either shots of just the legs, or you're gonna be so far away from cityscapes where there's gonna be a very just wonky sense of scale. But could it work? Possibly. Is it likely? I do not know.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But I'm also going to bring this on screen here because these two Godzillas, the one on the left, the ride design, and then on the right, the always design, which are both done by the same director. But just looking at these two, there's a few similarities. Essentially, in a lot of ways, the ride design is the essentially the updated version of the always design, where you see a very similar head, similar neck proportions, similar chest proportions as well. Just with the ride, you have a lot more scales, a lot more bumpier, rougher versus the always design. Although one thing I will say about the always design is that there is a lot more overlapping with the teeth, which gives it a little bit more of a mutated look versus the ride's teeth, which are a little bit more uniform.
Do we know like how much influence he had on the design process?
In terms of, I think he designed both of them. Yeah, but like even here, one thing I will say is that in a lot of shots, the ride design can come off as being essentially even thicker than Heisei. But things I do like is I do like some of the extra spikiness along the elbows, along with more plating around the upper arms, is one thing I really like from the ride design, especially. Although the head is probably the weakest spot, especially for me.
I just think it feels a bit too samey to what's really been like. When I look at this, I just feel like this is just a different take on the Heisei designs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to. I always think like it's best to just not try to lean too much into Heisei myself, personally.
Yeah.
So also, honestly, I'm looking at it now. He looks really fat.
Yeah, he looks really. This is the one shot that I always look at, and I see it. I'm like, man, he looks really big, especially here. And it's weird because I think there's a even looking at it from here, he doesn't look as big. Like he has a very big upper chest. His torso kind of contorts in, but then he has really big thighs, and then he has really big like lower legs. But like even comparing the shots, because like here, really big, looks like he has a really big stomach, but then here, it's almost like non-existent.
I think that just might be the angle then.
It's definitely the angle, but it's just a weird thing about this design is that when you look at it at certain points, it just looks huge. But the one thing I will say about the design is the one thing it does do is that it has that largest spine, and it's very large towards the back, right behind the arms, versus where it usually ends up where the biggest spine is usually at the midsection of the waist. Which I think if there's one thing that this new design could have that would be interesting to carry over from his older stuff, it would be this detail specifically. It's one thing that you don't see too often, and I like it. It's good.
All right.
Personally, I've never been the biggest fan of like the ride Godzilla. I would say the head is probably one of the things I like about it.
It's interesting because like even then I find the head to be kind of the weaker point. I would say even the always design had a better looking head. Although the one thing the ride design does is that it has a very faithful like brow ridge area, especially where the brows meet the nose and where the spines kind of jut out from the head with the kind of spiky mohawk bit. But like I also think the head's also just small too. Like it's a very almost pinhead kind of look. And then
I would say like switch the head of the ride to the always model, and then give the textures of the ride to the sunset model, and keep the proportions of like the sunset model.
Yeah, and even here, this was this was like the model he did for the sunset design. Even that has like weird proportions too, especially like with the neck and the head, and you don't see it in the model for always, but this one does have ears, interestingly enough. but I would say even with the model here, it feels like it takes a lot of inspiration from GMK Godzilla, especially in the body and how the neck positions itself.
You think he's gonna have that inspiration for this new film, or you think it's going to be something completely different?
I am not sure. The reason I say that he's probably going to have similar inspirations is just because of the fact that when I look at these two designs, there's so much similarity, although there's enough difference where they're two unique designs that I feel that what we're going to see is an evolution from these designs into something new. But then the question then becomes in my mind, kind of what will that evolution be? And I think, like, for me personally, the things I want to see the design do is just sort of improve the size of the head, just make it a little bit larger in more proportion with his body, maybe fix up the tail a little bit. And that's if we're just doing something traditional. If we get something completely different, there's a whole lot of ways it could go in that sense, which that would be a whole other discussion in of itself, which I'm definitely welcome to have. But what would be your thoughts on that? If, like, we are going to see a design that is taking cues from these other two designs here, what would you want to sort of see changed into like this hypothetical third version?
I would like to see keep the white eyes. I think the white eyes works really well. How you have more. If I'm going to have a bit of conspiratorial guessing, is that they're probably going to keep the the dorsal plates being biggest at the top instead of the bottom, just by guessing off the image that's been released for it.
Yeah,
assuming that's a Godzilla.
I think really that all the pictures we've seen is just of G. I know a lot of people are very much inferring that, like, how the G is shaped is going to, like, it's sort of like a sign of, like, oh, it's probably going to look something equivalent of this. But actually, I'm going to switch over. I think I still have it. Yeah, so, like, even someone took the G and has sort of been kind of working with it to look like something like this, which I don't think is likely, because I think really...
Well, do you think that's intentional, or is like pareidolia or something?
I think pareidolia. Because, like, when I look at it here, I think my clicker is on the screen here. It really just, to me, just looks like a brush stroke. So you have the thinness of the brush coming down, then it becomes big, and then you have the one brush stroke, and then another brush stroke. And I don't think it really is anything more than that.
Oh no, I think it will be too much. It won't make sense for it just to have a really weird G like that and not have it be meaning something.
Definitely, I could see that. Although the only reason why I reel against that is because I know when the first Godzilla movie had its when they had, like, Godzilla's name, like, they had a lot of blood effects for some of the old scripts that they worked on and some of the treatments, which just kind of leads me to believe I think it's just sort of they wanted to be fancy with it. And also because this is taking place in an older time period and it might be a period piece too, that they kind of wanted to do like a G that has a brushstroke that emulates sort of the utensils that you would have been written. So, like, a more calligraphy style G rather than, like, a more simple or just a randomly stylized G.
That's possible.
Yeah, no, I'm like, for me, it would be interesting if, like, there's so many hidden details in here and I'm just not smart enough to realize that. But, like, for me, I'm just thinking, like, what is, like, in Occam's razor kind of and Hitchens' razor kind of look at it. But Vic, do you think there's any kind of meaning in it? Because even, like, I love the fact, like, I don't think this is going to be at all what Godzilla's going to probably look like, but just using the G here to sort of work within a thing like this is pretty cool.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, because when I first saw it, I'm like, is it? Because that was my first thought without reading any other comments. Like, it kind of looks like a silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, like, when I think about it, that tail, that would be the tail, reminds me of like Shin Godzilla, especially with, like, the little round bit at the start.
Yeah, it's actually right here.
And then like the spikes, they look like or what would be the dorsal plates. Like, I get a legendary vibe, and then, like, I can see where there would be a mouth. Like, I can see it, I can recognize it.
Yeah.
Like, is it just my recognition of, like, shapes, like pareidolia?
Yeah, that's definitely me. I'm like just thinking to myself, I hope it's not just like me seeing shapes, because I'm also thinking the exact same thing in my head. And maybe it's just me just kind of being not necessarily pessimistic, but like trying to be more cynical about it, I guess. But like if it ends up being the case, I'm more than happy to be proven wrong on something like that.
We might be just be
Hmm.
overthinking it.
Sure. We could just be a bunch of nerds just being like, it has a great meaning, and then in reality it doesn't. But that is the joy of being a nerd, is that we get to we just make fun for ourselves in these kinds of situations. But one thing I will say though is that it does, like, even if like literally this is implying a design, it reminds me of a Godzilla design that I saw on Instagram. I forget the guy's name, but like the head, I could see the head sort of designed in there, and I'm trying to find it right now. But like, I don't know, it may just be me like looking at shapes and just like pulling something out that isn't actually there. But like um
Oh, okay. So,
Uh-oh.
wait, what happened?
I don't know.
Oh, he died. Well, since we're here, so want to talk about the those short films that were released yesterday, or
Sure.
yeah, all right. Which one do you want to start? The Gigan Rex or the Suitomation short film?
Let's
I
go with
hit
the Suitmation.
my
Oh,
internet, guys.
damn.
Yeah, literally I was looking for something and then I hear nothing and I'm like, wait, what happened? And that happens. But did anyone hear the last question I had said, or no?
No.
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 I
So
think you were just gonna like look for the design you said.
yeah, that's the only thing I was still looking for. So that was the last thing I heard. But in that case, I think Vic, you were gonna say something about Suitmation. But if you want to
Oh,
do that discussion while I look for this design, feel free to.
No, we were
I will.
discussing the short films that were released.
Oh no, if you want to, definitely you go for it.
Okay. Which one do you want to start with? The Gigan
We'll go.
Rex or the other one?
The Suitmation one.
Okay. If you ask me, I I think it's really good. Obviously, it was. It kind of gave me a lot of. I haven't really been that into Ultraman, to the modern Ultraman stuff, but I could definitely say that like it felt like it would. This is what would happen if like many of the people who've worked on modern like tokusatsu works of like Ultraman and stuff got the chance to work on a Godzilla with traditional effects. That's what I felt like when I watched it, and it was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I did like it better than like the Hedora short. With the action and the lighting. Not that the Hedora short was bad, but there were some things in this one that I liked better.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. I think I have like a bunch of. I'm in a Discord server that has like someone who just posted a bunch of the concept art and like screenshots from the behind the scenes on that short film. I'm not sure if I can get them all, but I could show some. I've released the storyboards. If it's
Yeah,
possible.
and like seeing the behind the scenes of the Hedora short, I got to see them at the screening of the Godzilla Day showing. And yeah, it looked pretty cool, like seeing the behind the scenes of like modern day stuff.
I think it's interesting that they chose to keep using the Final Wars one they used for the Hedora short instead of
Mhm.
try to use a different suit.
I think it probably comes down to the fact that Wakasa also did that suit too, so he's essentially just
Oh,
getting what
definitely.
he can out of his old suit.
Oh, definitely. That's probably why they did it.
And his
Yeah,
also is probably the only suit that's actually still able to be used too.
I remember
Yeah.
in the behind the scenes stuff, they're like they went into the storage room to see what they could use.
All right.
And I found the designs. Actually, there was one fan made design, and then there's an old concept. So we'll start with the old concept first, and that's actually it's an old Godzilla 2000s concept design. And it's this one right here. Like, just kind of looking at it, it does remind me a little bit for some reason, especially when you look at it compared to like the G and where the G makes the spines. It's really weird. I hope that isn't the case, but just that was the first official design that was never used that I immediately was like,
That's the goofiest thing I've ever seen.
And it is goofy. It is a goofy design, and I'm so glad that isn't what 2000 ended up being.
It looks like something you would see like an Ultraman.
Yeah.
It does have an Ultraman-y kind of look to it. But that was the official design, and then I will show off the fan design. There it is. It was this design right here, and it is just a wonky design. Like, especially with how its spines are shaped and kind of where the head forms on the G2. That was another thing where I looked at and I was like, it just reminds me of that too.
I don't know. I feel like that's a bit too simplistic to really be comparable.
It's definitely simplistic, but just for me, when it came up and I was like, that's just the first design that came into my head.
Yeah, very simplistic and more so stylized, I would say.
Yeah. Definitely.
Alright.
But then outside of the fact that we saw some of us are seeing designs in the G, there was apparently quote unquote 4chan leaks. And since for both of you guys, do you care about hearing these quote unquote leaks or not really?
I've really seen them before, vaguely,
You've seen them?
but
Okay.
you can go right ahead.
And you've read them too? Okay. And real quick, before I start reading them and we discuss them, the fact that the use of Hunter's Goji suit for the shorts gives me a funny thought that they may be canon to Final Wars.
Please. I want more Final Wars. That's my favorite movie.
I mean, it is indeed a gentleman's movie. But obviously, although I take this with a massive grain of salt, not because it's 4chan. The reason I say that is because 4chan essentially was able to accurately predict Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker almost to a T, like to a point where I was like, wow, they really got a lot right. But there was also a lot they did not get right. I will give them credit for that. But then when it came to GVK, there was a lot of things that were in there that was totally wrong. So I also give them that.
I think that less says about 4chan. It shows that, but blah. That says less about 4chan and more just how predictable Rise of Skywalker was.
You know what? I'm not going to argue that. Maybe, or it could be a broken clock is right once a day or twice a day kind of scenario. But let's get into it. The little banner at the bottom is there. Spoilers, maybe. So I'll read here. So we'll start there. And there is a mutant Godzilla, which the OP refers to as Godzilla, and then a natural Godzilla, which he refers to as Normie. A lot of gaps in story, but basically this. Sarasawa's family was in World War II. His father dies. Young Sarasawa, sister and mother are on the run, but they're separated. The mother is killed during the nuking of Japan. Sarasawa and his sister grow up with different views of the world. Godzilla is Japan's unbridled rage, hurting and extremely angry in the nukes. He attacks Japan in his blind rage, only to be confronted by Normie, attempting to bring his friend home, but fails and they get into battle. Normie loses and retreats. Godzilla continues to destroy Tokyo and swims away. Sarasawa is bitter about losing his home twice, nukes, then Godzilla, seeing Godzilla as America's fault and the Oxygen Destroyer as his means of solving the issue, as many Japanese fantasized about a weapon to destroy America after the nukes. Basically, Sarasawa sees the error of his ways about revenge and burns his notes and steals the Oxygen Destroyer in order to make peace with himself, seeing Godzilla as an equal to his pain. America attempts to stop him after they discover the Oxygen Destroyer is gone, but he's long gone. Godzilla and Normie have a battle at sea where Sarasawa, his friend and sister, use a small boat to get there. Sarasawa activates the Oxygen Destroyer underwater and dies, thinking he accomplished his job, but revealed Normie took the hit from the Oxygen Destroyer in a moment of sacrifice, knocks Godzilla out of the way. For his friend, the Oxygen Destroyer in this film works like an area of effect, a giant bubble, encloses things inside it and dissolves everything in it as it shrinks back down and pops. Godzilla has an awakening and this is just spelled wrong. In realizing moment that he's all alone now, he surfaces, roars, and swims away in a sad scene. Americans are pissed and attempt to do damage control. Japan begins rebuilding and hoping that Godzilla finds peace, as maybe when he does, they will too. Basically, a remake of 54 with added content. Two Godzillas, one affected by nuclear testing, the other isn't. Film played out as both a tragedy from humanity and Godzilla's perspective. Several foreign actors not well known to appear as Americans attempting to cover up their government's possible involvement in possibly creating Godzilla with nuclear testing and the bombings of Japan. Partly follows the Serizawa family and their struggles during the wars and Godzilla. America's fund Dr. Serizawa's Oxygen Destroyer project and is double crossed when he steals the only prototype and burns the notes after knowing he can't trust Americans with such a powerful weapon. Movie may be the first in Toho's World of Godzilla cinematic universe if proven successful. And on here, on the money, their tail is like Pokemon Mewtwo, just more aquatic. Natural Godzilla design based on whales, smoother skin. Head more based on orca, one large fin with spine, and several smaller ones. Mutated Godzilla is more traditional and scaly. Burnt and damaged black scales, closer to Godzilla the ride design. And that is all we know of the supposed 4chan leaks. And
I think that's a load of bull.
I think it's a little bull too.
Like, I'm not sure how to explain it, but there's something about everything about it just sounds a bit too. What's the word?
Fanfiction-y?
Yeah, I think that's the word. Because like it kind of the way it like characterizes Godzilla so much, which is like to an abnormal degree.
Especially with the newer films giving him very little emotion, just in terms of like characterization. Just seems very out of the blue for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, I would argue Legendary's Godzilla is verifiably racist to monkeys.
I will concur with that. The man does not like monkeys.
Very, very, very distasteful. But regardless, that's how I can say. I do think the idea of two Godzillas is a neat one, since the only one other film that's ever done it is like Final Wars, strangely enough.
Yeah, technically, Final Wars did it.
But
with two adult Godzillas, because technically, we could say Son of Godzilla in any other film with a baby Godzilla would count. But like in the case,
I don't think that counts. That's different. That's not the same.
It's not the same, yeah. But I'm saying if we're being technical about it, which in the case of even Final Wars, that's also kind of technical as well. But we could also say the same thing for against Mechagodzilla, but then again, that's Mechagodzilla. But
regardless, I'm pretty sure that's bull. That's all I can say.
Anyone got thoughts about like the American like side plot with this? Because that to me sounds super fan fictiony, and it sounds like something someone like a Western fan would do rather than like any Japanese fan would do. Because like even with like Shin, there was a commentary about Japan's relationship with America, but it wasn't like this like overtly black and white and juvenile and sort of its take about like America and the nukes. Like even 54 had a little bit more tact and subtlety, although some people could argue that that has to do more with the fact that there was still like some form of censorship going on in the country at the time.
Well, I would argue that that was probably because a bit both of censorship and just the director not wanting to stir up something after a big war just happened. So this is like, I kind of got that. I noticed that like a lot of weird, mean-spirited to Americans, which I don't blame them. I don't like America either, but I feel like that's just never a good thing, and it feels out of the blue.
Like I have my issues with it, with my country, as like anyone should do, but like it has such a black and white kind of take on it, which I think would be appropriate for a character who is reeling from the loss of war, but just how the movie is going to thematically paint America in this light. It just feels like something a Western fan would have done that seems authentically Japanese rather than something the director would do, especially when we also know that like the Japanese fans are kind of concerned that his movies are a little bit too feel good. This just seems almost overtly like randomly dark
Mm.
in a like very immature way, if you ask me, and like less nuanced than I think would be expected of him. But that's not that's my thought on that. But
Yes.
and
What
like
do you,
another thing that reminds me is like the more traditional Godzilla. They describe it as just essentially being the ride design, and the reason why I feel like that's a smoking gun as to why this is fake is because they're just saying, "Oh, it's the ride Godzilla. He worked on the ride design, so therefore it's going to look like the ride design." But anyone got thoughts on that or not really?
Mhm. Other than saying it's a load of baloney, I got nothing.
Mm.
Mm. I mean, I like the idea of like seeing like a more unmutated Godzilla. Reminds me of like the manga um adaptations of I think 54, where we got to see the unmutated Godzillas in their natural habitat before the bomb.
Oh, that was from a Godzilla dictionary. I know exactly what which ones what shots you're referring to.
Mm.
Um, yeah, like I would say, like if there's anything I wanted to pull away from this so-called leaks, it's that it would actually be very interesting to see in non-mutated Godzilla, like at some point in the film before we see a more traditionally mutated Godzilla. That could be interesting. But then like also when it comes to like America's involvement in the film, especially if it's going to be taking place post World War II, are they going to be kind of very close to history? Because an interesting thing when it comes to 54 is that by the point in Japan's history when Godzilla 54 would take place in universe, America had pulled out a lot since then. So like American involvement in Japan, as heavily as it appears to be in this movie, just it feels weird. But it would be interesting to see if they're gonna if like the film is nothing like this, if America would have any involvement in the film itself.
Mm.
But I give it a monkey seal of approval and 0 stars. It is probably fake. And if we see another 4chan leak and there's more details, I would be very much interested to see if they actually follow along the lines of this, although it's probably unlikely.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
Mm-hmm. And then we're probably going to be, someone's going to be like, oh, well, I just wanted to stir up hype for this new movie. I liked Godzilla. That's probably what's going to happen once people realize that the thing is fake.
Mm.
Huh?
But when it comes to just the movies in general, I know Vic, you wanted to talk about this. What are some of y'all's sort of thoughts about the Reiwa era in general in terms of where it's going to be going? Are we going to be seeing sort of a cool down with movies, or you think that we're going to be seeing more from Toho after this next film? So, what's kind of your gauge on things with how sort of merchandising and everything's been going?
From my perspective, it seems like they're using they're making these movies in between the legendary movies, just as like filler. Since they've been doing that with Shin, it's been the filler before, from I believe was after the first legendary movie, and
Yeah, between Cottam and 2014.
yeah, and same thing with the Polygon films and Singular Point. It's been consistently been there during the downtime to keep us busy. So
It's interesting too, because like
it's an ingenious strategy, really.
it's genius, but then it's also like people have definitely been kind of more turning off in the MonsterVerse in a way, and sort of what Toe's been doing, which in a way has been kind of like filler, has seeming to be more of the main course for fans rather than what is sort of what Toe's doing, which is working around Legendary's schedule instead.
I think that's fair, since a lot of the legendary films have been like kind of sticking to what's there instead of doing something different, which what these Reiwa films have been consistently up to.
Hmm. It would
And-
be interesting if the Reiwa film sort of whatever ends up sticking really well with the Reiwa films just kind of inches its way into the MonsterVerse stuff because like Toho's like, oh, what we did here really worked really well. Could you guys include that in the next big Hollywood film?
Hmm.
I don't. I doubt that's going to go in that direction. I doubt that's gonna how this is gonna go. It's like
I doubt it too, but like if well, the only reason I say that is just because when it like comes to what we saw, especially with like what Toho was doing with its outings, a lot of what we've seen later on past Shin has very much done a lot to emulate Shin. So if Toho's going to be keeping on doing this, if they're going to start being like, well, people really like what we've been doing, why don't you guys try it? That's the only reason why I think it's possible. Is it going to happen again? Maybe, maybe not.
I would think it would depend on how well like those concepts, how well Legendary thinks those concepts would do mainstream.
Yeah, or how
Like,
they translate into the like MonsterVerse in terms of like
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah, I think that's about all I can say.
and,
What
like,
about you, Beck?
I think it's interesting like seeing like how they've like gone back and forth with Legendary with the releasing of their stuff. Like now I see it like yeah, it is the Japan stuff is sort of like filler content between the movies of the MonsterVerse. Like I guess maybe just like to maybe piggyback off the success or like give the fans something in between to wait. Um, yeah, it's really interesting to see. Although that is making me wonder, like I guess to ask you guys, like, because I've seen people like separate MonsterVerse and Reiwa. Like, um, I always assumed that like it's like together as the whole Reiwa period, but like why is there separation between them? You know?
I think the only reason the separation is because one's by American studio, the other is not.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, I
it.
think it's probably the same thing because like we don't really put 98 with Heisei or Millennium. It just kind of is TriStar or 898.
It just is itself.
Yeah, exactly. So I
Mm.
guess I would say the only reason why it's weirder in this case is that because Legendary is still doing stuff alongside new Toho properties, and that the Toho like the Reiwa era isn't really a continuity at all. It's a collection of things. Like although we've had consecutive sequels for 3 films, which was even more than like the Kiryu films, which was a duology, it still feels more disjointed because we have Shin, which is super different from Polygon, which is different from Singular Point, and then now we have something completely different from all of these.
Mm.
And then the Monsterverse is different from all of those. So it makes sense in my mind just to have Monsterverse be part of Reiwa and just have that era be what it is. And then the same kind of goes for unlike for example with 98, where although the 98 TV show was going on during the same time as Godzilla 2099, it wasn't like after 99 there was like a lot of GTS stuff or 98 stuff. It was just sort of focusing on the return of the Toho Godzilla because like we
Mm.
hadn't seen Toho Godzilla in so long, I guess. And this is maybe just the fact that like this is just a new precedent we're seeing for like an American and Japanese sort of cooperation with one side doing stuff and another side doing things that just feels weird for people. And because of what we know when it came to how we categorize 98, they want to do the same. When I think in this case it's a little bit different and it's appropriate to just put it all as just Reiwa era.
And then I guess speaking to that, like seeing as how like the Reiwa and Monsterverse are like almost like a decade old, like how long do you think this new era is gonna last?
Uh, whenever we feel like it.
Mm.
I definitely I can agree with that. It really does kind of feel like it's a whenever we feel like we're done kind of thing. Because it's not
No,
like well no go Pazzo.
no, I mean like since like there's no real like specific into like what the how long the Reiwa era should be. It's just that it's whenever as long we universally agree it is and should be. At least that's how I see it.
I guess that's going to come down to the fact of like, well, so we know how the eras work in Japan. So whenever the next kind of emperor comes and that era is announced, is when like the films after that would be put into a new era, because technically, Godzilla is unique in the sense where the Millennium films were still part of what is considered the Heisei period, but they're not part of the Heisei series, which is why some people call that period of Godzilla films the Versus films. Because like with the Kamen Rider franchise, almost all of the writers, there's no like Millennium series for the writers. They're just all Heisei writers and Showa writers, and then now they have Reiwa writers. And Ultraman's the same way, where films that were like not films, but well, films and shows for Ultraman that were coming out around the same time as the Millennium Godzilla stuff were Heisei Ultraman, and now we have Reiwa Ultraman. And Gamera is like, because Gamera piggybacks off of Godzilla, we call the Brave Gamera a Millennium Gamera, when in reality it was still during the Showa period, not Showa, Heisei period of Japan. But like, what I was going to say when it came to like when we're done, it sort of does feel like, unlike with the Millennium era, there isn't like a big 10 decimal for Godzilla to aim towards, where with the case of 99 with 2000, there was a sort of time period between that and Godzilla's 50th anniversary. So like they did do a lot of cramming in, and that did cause some of the films to suffer. I think GMK, as good as it is, could have been better if it was given more time. And Kaneko had more control, and they sort of repeated a lot of issues the Heisei films ended up having. And because of that, we got what we got, which I'm happy with what we got, but could we have gotten better? I think we could have gotten better, definitely.
Do you think we will get better with this era?
I think definitely we've gotten better without a doubt,
Mhm.
because like we got Shin, which I would say in terms of like, I don't think we've gotten a new Japanese Godzilla film that had as much universal praise since probably 84. And even with that, I would say Shin had a positive reception in both America and Japan, unlike 84, which when that came over to the US was kind of panned. Although a lot of people in America liked it, it did not have the same rah-rah that Shin got. So like definitely the Reiwa era for Godzilla is unique among those things, and even 2000 was kind of middling received in both Japan and America. So I think the era definitely has more steam in it, and since we're seeing a greater level of marketing and just merchandising, especially now with stuff, I think that probably a mixture of them taking more time between their projects, Legendary kind of doing their work and still making a profit, and Toho getting residuals from that without doing as much, allows them to sort of be more hands-off, but also more hands-on in a paradoxical sort of way. Because I mean, like, I didn't think like we would ever see a Bandai variant in anytime soon, and I wasn't even expecting to see a re-release of the Bandai Godzilla 84. Like that was something I was totally surprised by. I knew Varan was getting a figure because he won the vote, but like seeing a memorial box figure that on the secondary market costs like a couple $100, it's surprising. And I think it's telling, because like as much as people like the design, it's not a super popular design, and it makes me wonder, will we see some of the older molds from specifically the memorial box come back? And I done a tweet about this too. Like, could we see another 55 re-release? Could we see a 65, a 67? But that's going to be something we're going to have to wait and see. But if we're doing 84, it could just mean that they're ramping up towards releasing 84 content because they're getting towards the end of their Showa stuff, which also there's a lot of possibilities that we could see. But I think everything overall, we are looking at a more brighter future versus a less bright future, if I was to give my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's about my take as well.
What can I say? We have good takes here as Gentlemen of Culture.
I don't know about that one. Because I say King of the Monsters is a terrible movie, but But we don't talk about that now, do we?
Oh no, a lot of people talk about it. I know there's a lot of people who watch me who have that take. It's
Yeah,
probably
and
why Samus
every
doesn't
person
want to be
I
on the
tell
channel.
that to wants to crucify me for it.
It's interesting. I one of these days I might have to do like a get a bunch of people on for like a internet blood sports stream and just have a bunch of like fans and haters just like go at it in a huge discussion slash
That
debate.
sounds hilarious. That sounds hilarious.
Like, and outside of it being hilarious, I think it'd be interesting to see people who have very like well thought out as well as deep rooted opinions about the films really having a medium to go at it and talk, which is why I want the Animus to come on, because like dude made a couple several hours worth talking about how good that film is. So seeing like him come on and talk to some people would be interesting to say the least, just from a like purely perspective and conversation standpoint.
All right.
It's sort of like it's like Cottom is now everyone's 98 essentially.
What is?
Cottom is everyone's 98 now.
I do not know what that is. What do you mean by
Godzilla
that?
98. King of the Monsters is now essentially everyone's Godzilla 98 in the sense where everyone has an exceptionally strong opinion about it and is definitely ready to voice it if need be.
Oh, I would imagine something like the Polygon trilogy is more of that title.
Oh no, I think definitely it is, but I also think a lot of people, like a lot of normie people, don't know about the Polygon trilogy. Like a lot of people know about like a lot of people know about King of the Monsters, but like when you ask them about like, oh yeah, you know there's a Godzilla anime, people are like, what?
Everyone I ever talked to about it says they know what it is.
Are you talking about like people who like watch
Just
Godzilla
people-
or like don't?
Just people I know in general.
Oh, that's interesting. I know, like, I would say the only times, like, I know people who know about it, it's because, like, they have Netflix and then it's popped up, like, in their search engine, like, once or twice when they were looking for something else.
That makes sense. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Same thing with, like, Singular Point. A lot of people will be like, oh, yeah, there was a Singular Point anime. Did you hear about that? I'm like, yes. There's always that feeling when you're that Godzilla guy, and then when they hear about something Godzilla, they're like, hey, did you know about this about Godzilla? It's like, yes. Yes, I did.
All right.
But in the not necessarily the meantime, since the last stream I did, at least with you, Vic, and obviously Potatoes New, has anyone been working on any new kaiju of their own?
Unfortunately, I have lost my motivation to draw for like ages. But I've still been thinking. There's still been living rent free in my head, despite that.
I mean, there can't be anything better than that. There's like, you just got something in your head, and you're like, oh, I really want to draw it, but then like, you don't draw it. You give it some time to simmer. You think about the design a little bit more, and then finally, when you do have that desire to draw again, a lot of times it just comes out even better and more formed.
Yeah. I could definitely say for certain that a lot of the things I've created have a lot more cohesiveness to them now than I did back when I first created them. I could go all day explaining the process, but
no, definitely. Like, since you are the new guy on the block, although this isn't like a design stream, since this like you're introducing yourself, definitely go over like sort of your design process.
Well, my design process I would describe as an incohesive mess. I don't really have a general idea whenever I design. It just kind of the general idea, the concept of something usually happens from something that sticks with me over time, whether it be a scene from a movie, a song, or something I've seen in a game, or something I've read in a book or a fanfic, something that just stuck with me, and I want to see something that kind of is connected to that in some way. I think I have a perfect example of this, but I'm not sure if I could. Hold on. Hold on. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no. Send me something via Discord, and I'll be able to bring it up because I do have a picture of like your profile picture. If you wanted to talk about that monster too.
I'll go over Jack in a bit, but I want to talk about this one, another one, since I think this one kind of better illustrates my point better. Okay, this one I really should go and eventually redesign this one to be more up to date with the others, but I already sent you, so take a good look.
I see it. Yep. Let me bring it there. Perfect. I will share it with the screen.
Okay.
And it is on screen.
All right. So first things first, how it all started with this was a scene from Jurassic World, specifically the initial fight scene between the T-Rex and the Indominus Rex. I forgot how the exact moments, but like it was like after the initial encounter before he took him down, where the Indominus was weaving and ducking and clawing at the T-Rex's face. Like specifically when he claws at his face, ducks under him, and uses his arm that is already on the opposite side from where he just ducked under to claw at his face. That that moment, I saw that. I thought, this is just dinosaur choreography, genuine like choreography. And I thought, what if, like, say, what would it look like if, say, it's something if it fought itself, like something that can do those same movements and fight in the same manner? And that's kind of where it started. A bit random, I know, but that's just kind of the initial thought.
It's definitely like it's interesting because I think you're the first person like I know of personally, as well as obviously on the stream, that they've been inspired more by scenes rather than like a animal combination or inanimate objects.
Yeah,
It's an interesting thought process without a doubt.
yeah. And from that on, from like the actual concept of like a aquatic animal, that in itself actually came from a video from I'm not sure how well you remember him, but from a person named Trey the Explainer.
Yep, I know he is.
That guy.
Yeah, way back when I remember seeing a video about the Build a Better Theropod project,
Oh, yep.
and I always liked that video because it had a lot of really cool animals in it. And there was one design in that in particular that I remember stuck with me. It was a hold on, let me see if I could. I'll show you the exact screenshot of it. Do it, just give me a second.
I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, and if you need to show me another shot, I will have that ready to pull up again.
All right, just 1 second. Let me just grab.
Oh, and Vic, if you have anything else you would want to show off for the stream, you can get that ready too. So I'll be able to just show it
Alrighty.
off.
Yeah, this particular design right here. This is what originally was what inspired me to do the theme of an aquatic animal.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna be able to switch between the two. So let me share that back up for the stream. And there we go. That's the first one. And that is the second, but we'll go back to the first one.
Yeah, I didn't. There's not really a lot complicated with it, other than like just the idea of an aquatic creature. It just that's the basis, and that whole scene in mind. That's originally where it came from.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of influence. I'd say, especially with your characters, Chris. Let me see if I can go all the way back to your other design. Is it him? Let me know. It's only gonna let me go between these two.
No.
Like even looking at the choice of the head.
Yeah,
it reminds me a lot, especially of this one here with its crest.
Actually, the actual head crest itself came from something different later down the line.
Oh.
Well, it's from a Monster Hunter monster.
Brachydios?
No, not Brachydios. It was
Very
a monster.
off?
No, none of those. It was a lava. I forgot what the name was, but it was a monster with like a
Is it the one with the lava wings?
No. It was still. It had like a long like gharial like mouth with like with the same crest design as that, with like the top crest and the bottom crest at the very end of the mouth.
Brandon, if you're in the stream, you should know exactly what he's referring to. I know you are, you Monster Hunter simp. You'll be able to bail me out.
He has good taste. He has good taste.
There's a lot of people in here who like Monster Hunter.
Oh no, you play it. Play it.
Oh no, I definitely play it. What's it called? I'm an insect glaive man.
Ah, I see. You like to fly.
I love to fly. If there was one thing I loved about that weapon, it was the fact that you could just flip around in the air.
Okay, here it is. Let me just throw it out in here real quick.
Is it gonna let me?
Here it is.
There, that one.
Yeah, this is what inspired the snout specifically. The
I,
back, yeah,
I do not know the name of that monster, and please, Brandon, you should be able to get this one. I know you're still in the chat, boy.
Agnactor.
Ignator. Interesting.
Yeah, that's what originally inspired the snout. The actual backplating, that really didn't came from anything in particular. It just had the thought process of I was imagining this thing in like a swamp, and I had the idea of something on his back that's so it's like covered in moss and seaweed and stuff as it moves,
Um,
and that's where that came from.
do you know I forget his name. He's the guy who does Tales of Chimera. You know who that is, right?
I'm not familiar with that.
I know he does. He has stuff on DeviantArt, but I know he had a giant Megaraptoran theropod dinosaur that had like a set of like appendages on its back that had moss on it. When you described it like that, and I know you like Trey, I thought you would know the guy who did the Tales of Chimera stuff.
I'm afraid I don't think I do. No, I don't think I do.
I might go over some of his stuff in another video, but like, is definitely like that kind of clique of people. But just it was something that was familiar. But if I just would definitely keep going. I want to hear more about the design process. Actually, want to explain the sort of the blue lining. Is that just sort of around the like stomach and the head? Is that just coloration, or was there like another aspect to that?
That was largely. I'll explain the big veins in this moment, but just the actual color was mostly just because it's a water monster, blue. It's simple that.
Yeah,
that's as simple as that. But the actual, this is the part that's like very interesting to me. Like the actual theme of like gray skin, large coursing veins through the body. This, I think I've seen it before. I've told you on Facebook ages ago, but you probably don't remember, so I'll explain it here. Long ago, like I don't remember, like at least 5 years, I saw a piece of concept art from a game called The Isle. Basically, it's like this dinosaur simulator where you just do stuff, I guess.
Yeah, familiar with The Isle.
Yeah, the thing that kind of, and I saw a piece of old concept art of something called the Neurotonic Megaraptor, and the thing that stuck with me was the massive coursing veins running throughout the body, and I thought that was such a interesting concept for a design, and for something that looks mutated, monstrous, and unnatural, that I want to see something where it goes to the extreme with that concept, and that's how it all started.
I think I found it.
I already showed you. I actually posted it already.
Oh, you posted it in the Discord?
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you. That's the one I found.
Yeah. That's actually where Jack first came from, my profile picture. Because at the time I wanted to try to draw that, but I'm terrible at tracing, so I ended up making something completely different. And I ended up just kind of going from there as using that as inspiration because, well, I like the weirdness of it, the weird outline shapes, like how the claws are different. On one hand, the claw is more like this big sickle claws on the thumb, while the other is more like on the wrist.
I think also the way it gives off a very BOW Resident Evil kind of look as well, especially with the eyes. And the coloration too. The red gives it that kind of fleshy, almost lictor kind of vibe too.
The one I saw didn't actually have it colored. It was a purely just sketch. This is just the closest one I was able to find, but I chose the gray color scheme to kind of feel the zombie unnatural feel.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But with Jack, do you want to give some thoughts onto his design, or mostly there is ready to tell on that?
Yeah, I could go into it. It's not as complicated as that's the one I said a moment ago.
Mhm.
He's a bit the most consistent, I would probably say, out of all the creatures I've ever designed, since he hasn't really strayed much from my original vision. Because I always viewed him as like, say, the quote unquote Godzilla of this whole idea, and
Mhm.
so I thought he should be best to be simple and consistent, since well, if a if something like a mascot needs to be something that's simple to break down and easy to remember. So, like, if say you want to duel it real quick, it's just a quick sketch.
Yeah, just sort of an easy fill up and go.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's really all I could say about its like design wise. I can't really say actually. Well, I can say a couple of things like in the actual. Well, okay, let me show the original sketch since the original sketch is different from that artwork right there.
Mhm.
There's a
Yeah,
couple
no,
of
if you
things.
want, you can send me the original sketch to Discord, and I can search it from there.
Yeah, here. The original one is a little different in that, largely in how I chose to do the legs. I
Hmm.
Since you notice how the legs are bent backwards, right, instead of forwards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's more noticeable here, especially.
I originally had the idea as like how you notice how like birds you tend whenever you I know birds have like the weird double ankle joint thing, but I
Hmm.
thought it would be more interesting if it deliberately had that weird backwards joint to it. I just a weird something.
And another thing I like about it too is just the colors too, especially with the toes and then with the claws there, along with the spikes on the end of the tail. There's just a very good sort of consistency where you have that yellow to break up the gray, and then along with the veiny red, help both those points kind of pop out, and so the most like distinct details really shine there, which is good about the design.
I honestly don't really have a particular reason why I chose the color yellow. I just felt like it was the easiest one I could think of, so I felt like it worked.
Hmm. I think also like not just the fact that probably was the easiest for you. I think a lot of times we don't realize this, but we can usually draw ourselves naturally to combinations of colors that just work really well, even though we may not realize it.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Because like with the there could have been other lighter colors you could have used, like a light blue, like green, or even a light red, which you also already have a red to begin with. But the yellow there fits just naturally because toes and claws can sometimes be yellow, but then also because it's a brighter color, it's a breakup of the lighter red versus the darker gray. It just has a perfect balance to it that's just naturally pleasing.
Hmm. However, I can go into great detail about its personality and psychological aspect, if you
Oh no,
like.
we definitely go off.
Okay, so m- one of the biggest struggles I've had is to figure out what I want this thing to be, because I don't want it to just be just a random monster that's infected, because I feel like that's a bit too samey, especially for what I tended this thing to be, is that a kind of an antagonistic force that's consistent. But so I ended up concluding that I wanted this thing to be. If you've read One Punch Man, I would probably best describe him as like Garo,
Mm.
in the vein of the villain that progressively, as the story goes on, gets more and more dangerous as the challenge escalates, and the failure of whether it be the main characters or the government or something that allows it to able to take advantage and escalate its own potential.
Mm.
It's I intend wanted to be something like how do I put this? Oh,
Um,
how
give me some words, and I could probably give you a description that would make sense.
I would probably say it's an cunning, a almost psychopathic ruthlessness, but also not mindless. It doesn't kill without reason.
So sociopathic probably would be the best psych term I could come up with that.
In a
Like
way,
someone
I
who
suppose.
like has like very little to no empathy and just really wants to kill. Although psychopathic also works as well.
Well, I don't want to say it wants to kill. Well, it does kill, but it kills for its own interests.
That's
As
well, mostly in a lot of cases, sociopaths as well as psychopaths. A lot of what they do is for their own self interest, whether it's like for someone's specific kind of affection or to gain something out of people. But like that is something both of these types of personalities
yeah,
do indeed do.
yeah. In if I were to just give a basic outline of what I, at least I can think of what these things are, is like best I could really put it is like a type of highly advanced alien bacteria that has this, how do I put this, hive mind properties before it, when it's in a microscopic state, but as in, comes into contact with other material and especially biomass, it becomes its own singular organisms with the intent of us consuming as much material as possible to grow more and more powerful, dangerous, and advanced in
So
every
like
aspect.
essentially like supercells that sort of metastasize into a singular being.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
in a way.
like the best comparison for people who did not understand those terms at all would be like something like the flood from Halo, for example, where
Yeah,
flood spores kind of are independent, but like once they start accruing more biomass, they form the grave mine, which you see in Halo 2, which is sort of like a central singular being.
well, yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah,
I
but
think that's a cool idea.
but like in a different way. It's not like when it just. I was thinking like, because this Jack is different from others like it, because this thing it deliberately goes out of its way to try to make itself stronger, while others like it just kind of live and act like animals. This thing
Mm-hmm.
is, as I call this thing, a singularity. Basically, it's basically like the Moses in a way. It deliberately wants to bring itself together, all this biomass together, to become something, the peak evolution of that entire planet. Everything merged into one, like the Brethren Moons from Dead
Dead
Space.
Space.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, another thing it reminds me of is are you familiar with anything from like Warhammer 40K?
A little, yes.
Do you know the Tyranid Old One Eye?
I'm not familiar with that one, no.
Well, are you familiar with the Tyranids in general?
Generally, yes.
Yeah, so for people who aren't familiar, the Tyranids are a biological alien that their species are essentially a swarm of different like biomass forms, and they just want to consume the galaxy. Specifically, Old One Eye is a Carnifex, which is a larger kind of Tyranid. But although the Old One Eye has been killed before, it specifically seems to be a Tyranid that does not get dissolved back into the hive mind, and it just keeps appearing at different points in the history of Warhammer 40k. And although it's not seeking to get stronger, it is like a unique Tyranid that just keeps on appearing and fights like very well-known characters throughout the universe. In a way, Jack is kind of like a more fleshed out version of the idea of Old One Eye, but in my opinion, a little bit better and more has more character.
Yeah. Because if I were to give an example, if say it would stumble across a child who accidentally got caught in a bear trap, it would deliberately leave that child there as bait for something else to come by, so it could kill that.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, sort of like, well, not necessarily like an honor code, but more or less a strategic understanding that like things will want to defend weaker parts of their species, so therefore letting something suffer will allow it to then gain something stronger out of it
Yeah, that's
instead
the
of
exact
passing up
idea.
a free kind of meal essentially for its kind. So it's essentially able to think more long term comparison to others like it.
Exactly.
No, that's
And
definitely interesting.
hmm, yes, and if I were to just go real quick, like it's about 80 meters tall, like 100 meters long, and 90 meters. I never really thought about how long it is. I have no clue how I would say about the weight. Just general stats, just its proportions.
Are you thinking of like if we were to guess, like if we were to flesh it out more, would you say he is kind of light for his size or is he heavy for his size?
I would say he's about mid to near heavier range.
Mid to near heavier range. Okay. Let me think about
As
that for a second.
as I know, I've made others that are bigger than him. As for example, the one I talked about beforehand is deliberately bigger, about 100 meters tall
Mhm.
from head
So
to
maybe
snout.
like probably in terms of weight, something along the lines of maybe 60 to 70,000 metric tons, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was thinking 80,000, but that's a bit more
I was
conservative.
thinking when I thought of that too, but I was thinking maybe 80,000 might be a little too heavy because you're getting closer to than 100,000.
Nah, because like I haven't really said this anywhere, but I had the idea that these creatures are made, their skeletal structures and stuff were deliberately modified as it consumes biomass and
Hmm.
relic biomass it already had to improve itself. Like its bones are made of pyrite instead of cartilage to allow it to support its massive weight.
Interesting. That's the first time I've heard someone use pyrite as an example for a skeleton structure. I know people have used cartilage, obviously, normal bone
And,
mixed with metal. Pyrite, that's interesting.
and that's actually inspired from a video about an alien, a speculative alien project called. Hold on, let me just. No, I'll just send you the video.
Okay.
Fan, Pan.
Oh, Curious Archives video.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen his
Fantanium.
stuff.
Yeah, specifically mentioned pyrite. I thought, huh, I never thought of that. It would make sense if they try to use different elements instead of what was already known to allow it to be big. Other than that, I do know that how this thing will end. It will achieve its goal. Well, no, it would indirectly achieve its goal through, excuse my language, getting the shit kicked out of it by something way big, way uh, more intense than it, but that thing eating it, and in turn gaining a lot of the ambition and general knowledge. As you see, these things, when they devour each other, they essentially go for the brain because that's essentially a big treasure box of information.
Hmm. So it's essentially like a zombie mixed with a Saiyan, essentially.
Yeah, in a way, yes. And just to show you what exactly is the thing that would body it, this thing.
There it is, and lets me share that for the audience.
I forgot to mention this, but Jack would have been a different form than the one that you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
As these things are, I like the idea that like at a certain point of biomass, they will essentially self-impregnate themselves that with a essentially a better version of themselves that will rip out their bodies and devour their brains, thus gaining all their information. And it's a visceral form of reincarnation, if you will.
Mm. So like reincarnation mixed with like a symbiote, kind of.
I was thinking more like xenomorph.
Mm. Okay, that makes sense.
I really like this design.
Yeah. I honestly can't remember much about the process behind this one, other than like a two-headed creature with fire and electricity. But later on, I decided, that sounds a bit too corny. And let's just say it sweats nitroglycerine, so if you hit it, it just explodes.
That sounds interesting. Touch. But like, does its skin just excrete it, or like, is it just always covered? Like,
it's like a sweat.
Okay.
Like,
ooh, does that
So
mean like if
yeah.
it's like if it kind of sweats, it's just gonna kind of there's gonna be like a trail of explosions behind it?
it's like just a constantly exploding if it's sweating.
Well, that's interesting.
So like all the properties of like how we sweat or whatnot, it will just simply use that as a weapon.
Mm,
You guys
And
watch My Hero Academia?
yes.
nope.
You know
Yeah, I
Bakugozen?
know Bakugo. I
His
know
quirk
Bakugo.
reminds me of that.
Yeah.
I like
Just
it.
though I will say I did not. That was not inspiration. It's pure coincidence.
As well as I think did you show me this design too a long time ago?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so I think actually probably you probably predated My Hero Academia actually coming out. So you know what? Why don't you try suing Isayama over that one?
I'm gonna need a lot of luck on that one.
I will give you my luck.
But yeah, I haven't really fleshed him out as nearly as much as Jack, other than he's way more passive and generally like stationary most of the time, as he's just so dangerous and powerful that essentially nothing threatens it.
Hmm. Another thing I was thinking of is that although its mode of explosion is not like the same with sweating, you'd probably know this one. It also gives me a basil juice kind of vibe as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair comparison. I would imagine that right arm, his right arm, if it somehow survives explosions, that it just uses his massive right arm. It just punches things really hard.
Would those cause? Well, I would assume probably because it's sweat's covered in it, would be able to also just cause explosions with every punch it makes too, right?
Exactly. So the idea is that it just completely mollywops Jack, almost comedic, but not really.
One thing also is that since it's got a super long tail and it looks kind of like it could be prehensile, I could imagine him like coiling around something and then sort of letting his tail sort of whip loose and something just trailing along the tail and just catching an explosion after explosion with every hit.
Yeah. Though something I realized later down the line from if I were to go back and change it, I would probably take inspiration from the asymmetrical people from All Tomorrows with the legs.
Mm.
Since looked at that and looked at how it is compared to mine and thought, this could work. Since the legs I feel a little bit too many and a bit kind of weird in comparison to the rest of the body. So I felt like it would be more cohesive.
I mean, like from what you see, like considering the fact that like their evolution and like how they absorb things isn't necessarily the most pretty, having it kind of be the way it is in a way could work better. From like my perspective, you
That
got
is
thoughts on that, Vic? Or actually, no, I think you are actually
What's
muted,
up?
Vic. No, I was gonna say the sort of with the like instead of it being more symmetrical, having it be really really asymmetrical and just look a little malformed makes more sense than it being a little bit more uniform.
I like the asymmetry of the design. I think if you like play with personality type for it, like Ghidorah and Katam, like that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think like definitely the one of the best details of this design, especially is with the heads. Like work on the heads more and sort of develop personalities from the heads. That would totally be like a big eye catcher for the design.
I want a figure of this, like just a cool figure.
I don't blame you.
I really like the red head.
Ironically enough, I prefer the yellow one. It has like that rounded kind of vibe to it. The sort of mouth segments on the side remind me a bit of Nia Geomos. So that's why I like the yellow one.
I like the more like edgy, more angular head. That's how I like my designs. That's why I like 98.
My thought process of the heads was that one is the brute and one's more intelligent. But I'm not sure if I want to keep that. I probably won't keep that.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea of having one sort of be a little bit more brutish while the other's a little bit more kind of tactical. Although what you could also do is that if you have the split occur further down the bottom, their upper bodies could also emulate that more too, where one's a little bit more sleeker while the other one has a little bit more of a defined upper chest.
That's actually a good idea.
Thank you.
Now
I
let's
want
do one more. Do another one that's a lot more cohesive, at least in like actual, what's the word? Like actual like background behind it.
Hmm.
I don't have a name for it, but we'll just call him Rogue, since that's the best thing I can come up with him. This one, okay, this one has like the biggest change from the initial draft to current. I don't have a picture of it, but originally it was looked a bit more gargoyle-like, like a massive gargoyle.
Hmm.
But I didn't. I felt like it was too, what's the word, lazy and uninteresting.
Hmm.
So later down the line, I eventually just kind of gave her a more pterosaur dragon-esque look.
That makes sense.
With the tail in particular, I was inspired by um, old pterosaurs that actually have tails and how
Like
they
Ramphorhynchus and the like.
exactly. So
Actually, want to explain with the white circles on the design? Sort of give your
yeah, so
thoughts on that.
the white circles are supposed to be um, like its noses, kind of like how Avatar has as many as animals have their like noses on their chest and near the
Hmm.
base of the neck. That's because the idea is that this creature is capable of sonic sound, kind of akin to Godzilla Earth's super oscillatory wave.
Hmm.
So and those pores allow it to basically shoot super oscillatory waves either from the top and the bottom, so it's generally secure, so it can't be like ambushed from any angle.
Hmm. Also, another interesting thing is that considering the fact that it can fly, although it could also probably just use like thermals and stuff. Having it using its its sound as a weapon, it could also propel itself using the pressure from sound waves too. Especially if like it's flying, it can make split second changes in like positioning based on where it kind of yells.
I hadn't really thought of that. I hadn't really thought of that. My process idea was that its internal body has like has organs with magnetic properties that allow it to stay buoyant in the air. It's then a push against the earth, kind of like how certain type what was it those certain types of trains have like back use magnets. I forgot what they're called.
Like bullet trains.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bullet train, but a bit more extreme.
Mm.
So it allows it to keep airborne and be mobile despite its size.
That could definitely make sense. The only thing you would just have to worry about with that is when it's reaching poles and stuff, it would then have to make sure it's able to quickly switch its polarity, because if it hits the wrong pole, it's either gonna get repelled or it's gonna suck itself in.
I doubt it. It doesn't. It's not really a creature that would have a reason to go to the poles. So I
Mhm.
think that's not much of a worry.
Well, no, not necessarily the poles proper, but like based on its size as well as how much polarity it probably may cause. If it like crosses the equator and it's hitting that other pole's area, it would then have to split second change that just in case.
Uh,
It's also going to depend on like the level of realism you're going to want to implement for that, because I do like the idea of using magnetism as a way to have this creature move, because depending on how it interacts with the world around it, it could like essentially um, focus in on a certain kind of magnetic frequency and therefore kind of propel itself almost like thrusting around places if need be.
all right. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Mhm.
I I wasn't really thought of it like that. I because my idea for it is that it's a stealth based creature. It's really good at stealth,
Mm.
nearly undetectable in a way, and that it's capable of sneaking up on targets and despite even high technology with relative ease. and I thought that was interesting contrast to its ability of sound and that its main power is just being really loud.
Well, it's also interesting because like if you're in an area like if someone was tracking this in an area with low visibility, if it's stealthy, depending on how it's stealthing itself, either it's just completely undetected or its magnetism is just producing either um, a target in a totally different area or it's producing so many targets they don't know what's real. And then combining that with the fact that like even though planes and stuff break the sound barrier all the time, people don't really like your ears don't like having loud sounds just right next to them. So essentially, if even if a squadron of fighters is flying at like supersonic speeds, having something going to just yell and like break the glass of the cockpits is definitely going to rupture not just eardrums, that could damage lungs and like anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I imagine this creature is just surprisingly aggressive despite its stealth capabilities. It
Well, I mean that definitely fills the role of it kind of being more of a stealth fighter because like the goal with them with fighters of that nature is to go in unseen, cause a lot of damage, and then get out. But if this is like something that's aggressive, it's essentially picking fights that it's going to be able to win very easily because it just has that perfect matchup.
yeah,
Which
I was
reminds
thinking
me of
like
something like a Night Fury from How to Train Dragons.
Yeah, especially with the even though the Night Fury is blue, it's fire. I mean, Night Fury is black, its fire is blue, and since it has the blue tint on it, that definitely was something that came into my head as well.
I never really thought of it like that. But I was thinking that this is a type of creature that, despite its size, will pick fights with things bigger than it without fear, and
Well,
it is deceptively resilient.
sort of like geese.
Yeah, like it would be like a big problem for Jack. It would constantly be fighting it over and over again, despite the size difference. As this thing's like 50 meters roughly
Mm.
or less, while Jack is like 80 meters. And it's surprisingly good at fighting it just because of its speed and aggression. Something like akin to Seregios,
Hmm.
if you know what that is.
Yeah, I do know Soragios.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
To get answer your question, if you're curious about the lower jaw, I came from inspiration from again the Isle, a piece of concept art by artist Tapwing, and how she did her design for the Tissosplastic Stegosaurus.
Yeah, no, I've seen this Stego design before. The mouth is definitely it's distinct and it like with a raptor you could sort of be like, oh, that kind of is naturalistic. With the Stego's head for this one, it's like, wow, that is super alien.
Yeah, I I just like the sharp look of it. I think if I were to redesign it, I would try to make the head a bit more sharp, so like it would fit more natural with the lower jaw, the sharp lower jaw.
Hmm.
Since like if I'm thinking like to be more aerodynamic in a way, if I look at it from the top or the front.
Hmm. Have you one thing you could also do to help it make it super angular is definitely start with this head, but also have you seen like a lot of stealth aircraft?
No, I have not.
Definitely to help it make it look super sleek, using stealth aircraft as an influence would probably be a big help too. Like Blackbirds would be an easy example.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I'll keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Any
Aside
thoughts
from
on your end, Vic?
I really like
Back
it.
to the go back to the other design.
Yeah, I really like it. Like I like this um aesthetic with all the designs I've seen. I really like it. Like I want to see like a TV show or something with all these designs in this world. Like really super interesting.
speaking of the world, to break away from the monsters real quick. The general idea is kind of like a not really post-apocalypse, but like mid-apocalypse. Like the world is mid-crisis as this force, this alien force, just suddenly comes upon the world and escalates.
So sort of like Pacific Rim kind of.
Kinda. I was thinking like I'd get more inspired by the the news scene, from the extras from I believe Dawn of the Dead, like the news reporters who like the zombie apocalypse. You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen Dawn of the Dead in a while, so
Which
I'd
Dawn
have
of
to
the
look
Dead?
at it.
I think the remake. Hold on,
Oh,
let me
I've
pull it
watched
up.
that one.
Let me just pull it up. Where is it? Do not know where to find it. But as I find this, I will say there are two distinct themes I had in mind that correlate with each other. The main one is, when is it justified to escape reality? The concept of escapism, when you're in a situation that is just so bad and getting worse that you can't bear it.
So
Since
kind of like a Matrix kind of scenario in
in a
terms of
way,
just thematic.
thematically, in a way, yes. But like I won't with like a sort of Last of Us type of setup with the characters being an adult and trying to look out for a kid.
Mm.
But the difference is that the kid is deliberately trying to not be ignorant, but not think about everything through comics and stuff, and he almost just out of trying to deal with the pain, follow along. If you get what I mean.
No, I actually really like that idea. Having a character who like is in a extremely stressful situation and is using a medium that the audience would understand to sort of escape from that, and sort of having a story that can explain the value of like ways for us to cope would be, I think it'd be profound, but like also be very interesting if like constructed very well.
Yeah, that's the general concept of it. I haven't really thought much outside that, other than I know one of those two are going to die. They're going to die horribly. They're going to get eviscerated by Jack.
Okay, I was about to say it's not going to be like since you brought up The Last of Us, it's not going to be like a Last of Us 2 kind of scenario, right?
Nah. It's
Thank
going to
God.
be like these things are going to be the big problem. Like you're going to have people be small problems in comparison to these things. I Now go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say that that's good because like I think an issue with like a lot of post-apocalyptic and like even apocalypse media is that like the threat that sets up or is the apocalypse tends to always kind of get pushed off to the side for like a very kind of shoehorned in humans are the real monsters, or oh, the things we should be worrying about are other people kind of tangent story. And if I think like if the focus is going to be these other creatures, I think that would be refreshing.
I was thinking like I have a tone equivalent to like Dead Space, the Callisto Protocol. This kind of visceral, there's this intensity and visceralness whenever these things get involved more often than not. Especially
Mhm.
since the idea is like newer ones are less coherent and more just bloodthirsty animals trying to get as much biomass as possible,
Hmm.
regardless
Is
of.
human tech in the world sort of on like a Dead Spacey level, or is it more like a
No, this is just this is modern time.
oh, it's modern times? Okay.
Would if you're talking like mid-apocalyptic, would something like World War Z be like an example of?
Yeah, it will. Yeah, I think that's a good example. World War Z. I
Cool.
think
I
that.
haven't seen World War Z in a while, but yeah, I
You should
that'd
read
be
the book.
interesting.
The book is way better.
But yeah, no, I have I've seen the book before in my store. I have not bought it, but like I've been meaning to read it.
You should. It's really good.
Hmm.
For some reason, North Korea just it vanishes off the map, and I think that's hilarious. Nobody knows where it's gone. It just left. It just gone.
It was always gone. The North Korea is a myth.
Thank God.
But overall, any other kind of points you wanted to bring up for your world, or was that about it?
I can't really think of anything on the top of my head right now that I can add
Mhm.
other than one more, like two more creatures. One that's not really that important, and the other that's very important to
Mhm.
to the conclusion of the whole thing. Let me just bring him up real quick. He's probably the one who has went through the most changes, the most like scrapped ideas, as I did not know what I wanted to do with him at all, other than hungry. He's some a fat dude who likes to eat. Behold,
Let me bring that up. And there we go.
here he is.
Definitely
Okay.
reminds me of the behemoth from The Mist.
Hmm.
So with this one, again, this one was very different from initial draft. It's a lot, but the idea was just a large something big that eats a lot. That's the initial concept. The actual design, I can't really say for certain where I got the idea from, other than I know the legs were deliberately that way as inspiration from sauropods and Legendary's Godzilla.
Hmm.
Besides that, the idea is that it's a massive omnivore that's been terrorizing Australia
As if the
through.
Aussies needed anything else to worry about.
I don't know, they always have something to worry about.
One thing I also noticed is that with the mouth, with how the teeth are arranged, it has kind of a Devil Joe esque kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I did take a little inspiration from Devil Joe when I did that part.
Pickle.
I forget if you said, but like, are the color of the veins like significant at all, or?
Not particularly for most of them. I think for this one in particular, though, I had chose yellow, as yellow along with red are best known as as colors that make you feel hungry, which is
Hmm.
like the McDonald's logo, for example. It has yellow and red because people are hungry when they think of yellow and red.
Mm.
No wonder I always want to McRib from them.
Yeah, you see, now you know. Now you know their secrets. Now you know how to stop him.
I will then have to take down McDonald's this way. Or I could just flash like red and yellow in front of someone if they're angry at me and they'll just be hungry now.
uh,
One thing I could also think of is that with the veins, if you had them kind of trail off towards the stomach and you engorged it a little bit, you could have like a really interesting effect where it looks like the veins are kind of digging into the stomach and making it expand so it can just keep on eating more.
that's actually that's actually a great idea. Actually, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, no, like you know how Biolante's its like root cavity looks like on its final form?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That's what I was thinking of. Because
Hmm.
especially if it's like related to
Mhm.
like eating and stuff, like it could definitely give it a very gluttonous kind of appearance in that sense.
Hmm. Yeah, that actually works really well. The back spines, that's the part I've always struggled with since I'm not entirely sure what I wanted to do with it. I know I
Hmm.
wanted him to have some sort of a massive ability over the weather, but I didn't really know what structures I wanted to really illustrate that. Since, well, how do you illustrate something like that? You
What
could
kind of weather were you thinking about trying to get from it?
massive, massive hurricanes that
Hurricanes? Hmm.
you can look at from the previous design before this one I just sent you. This was an older design that I wasn't really satisfied with since I didn't really like the sail.
One thing they could do is if instead of them just kind of being spines, it looks almost like what's it called? Smokestacks that can kind of pump chemicals and change the pressure of air so that it's more yeah, essentially creates an environment for a hurricane to occur. Not to mention based on like their internal anatomy, they could attract like lightning and all that. So therefore it's essentially like a walking eye of the storm in a sense.
That that actually works pretty well.
That's what we're here for, folks. Let's go.
What I do know is that I know this thing will eventually run into a counter with the two-headed monster. And whoever wins doesn't really matter. But the point is that will be the convergence event where all hope is lost and you're dealing with something that humanity doesn't really have the tool to deal with. Hold on, let me see if I can find a good picture of this thing. It's good. I'm just gonna bring up some stuff I've gotten people to do for him. That's not everything of this. Where's a good one? It's a good one. It's a good one. These are good enough. Here's these. I haven't had a name for it, but it's essentially a convergence event of the singularity gaining enough biomass to become something that is unstoppable, that will consume as much biomass as possible to become peak evolution of the planet. So, like a brother and moon.
Yeah, if we're thinking of like a name for it, was there outside of obviously Dead Space, was there any like mythological or cultural kind of inspirations for the metal? And we could probably see if we can build something off like a language from that.
Other than like probably the Moses metaphor for Jack.
Like Moses isn't like biblical Moses?
Yeah, like the one like ripping over
the Red Sea, yeah.
Yeah. Something akin to that.
Let's work with something like that.
But the idea is what would happen is that once this thing becomes this, it doesn't really fully understand its power and what it's capable of, as it simply has the ability to warp space-time. But because it doesn't know how to do it, it inadvertently, accidentally just teleports itself away, somewhere far away. And the story leaves off on a world that's battered and traumatized, but the best thing everyone could do is keep moving forward, as life always does.
Ooh. One thing, like obviously, although Moses is Hebrew and this is what's it called, Egyptian. Although then again, Moses came from Egypt. Neither here nor there, but I think even like trying something along the lines of like deriving a name from like Apep or something, or Apophos, would be appropriate, considering the fact that like Apophos and Apep, just same name for the same thing, or a different name for the same thing, are both chaos serpents. So since this is essentially like a gnarly, like chaotic serpent-like creature, even just having essentially being, instead of it being a convergence event, calling it like an Apep event or an Apophos, or actually no, an apotheosis instead of
Ooh,
that could
I like
work.
that. Yeah, I like that.
Because instead of apotheosis, it'd be apotheosis. So essentially just sort of mingling with the lettering a bit, so it sounds more like Apophis rather than apotheosis.
I like that. I like that a lot. That can work really well.
I can, after this I can I will send you sort of like a spelling I had in my head for that.
Please do.
Definitely. But overall, I definitely do like the ideas that you have set up. One thing I would say though is that instead of having it set in modern day, I think the sort of like these creatures could definitely they would definitely suit a more not necessarily near future, but a somewhat more sci-fi kind of setting to them, because it just feels like they mesh well aesthetically.
I'm looking in chat. Brennan Sheffield, Shepford, I cannot pronounce that last name.
Shackleford.
Okay.
Although,
He-
you
he
probably know
said-
as Skull King Ghidorah 2016 on DeviantArt.
Yeah, I think I still have his one. Was one? I think I know which one he is. Yeah, I had a request from him like ages ago, and I still have it.
Yep, there. I can tell that's definitely Brandon's style.
Yep.
We'll show it off here. Outside the fact that he's a good painter, Brandon does know his way around pen.
Oh, definitely.
Mm.
I think I started my whole thing around DeviantArt, so I'm very much familiar with stuff.
But what's it called? It's definitely like a family reunion in that sense because able to bring that back.
Yeah, the memories that brings me back. I still have all the ones I've requested from other people. There are so many, but I'll be here all day if I went over all of them.
Trust me, I wish I had the time for it.
Same. Though, one more thing before I'm done.
Yes.
This is something different, but this is from. If you're familiar with the artist Tyler Davis.
Yeah. No. I think
Yeah.
we've shown some of Tyler's stuff on the channel before.
Yeah. This is like ages ago, but a while ago, he contacted me and he wanted to do a collab for a creature and for one of the Lovecraftian gods, and I thought, yeah, that sounds fun. And well, this is what he got.
Oh, I remember this. I saw this before.
Yeah, this was something.
Let me share that screen again.
This one.
Mm.
It's been like ages, but I do remember that the idea wasn't from like a particular creature, but from a piece of artwork of an alien of some artist. I don't remember who. I think I can find it, but I do know it was definitely from inspired by another artist's creation.
It
that I-
reminds me of a certain. I think it's a horror from D&D. I'm trying to remember the name of it though. Like it's related to the Illithids, I believe. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. I don't not sure if I could find the original image that inspired it, but that's something I helped collab with and have fond memories of.
Yeah,
I'll
it
be honest.
reminds me. It reminds me of similar to. It reminds me of an aboleth from D&D. That's what it was.
Hmm.
Let me bring up an image to show the people what
No,
I'm referring to.
If I'm completely honest, I think I kind of just winged it a bit on like a lot of the traits, like the stripes and the curly part on the body. I just
Mhm.
kind of winged it.
Well, I mean, like it definitely has sort of like obviously it doesn't have a lot of traditional biology to it, so it has that aspect of Lovecraftiness to it, but also because of the fact that it has like these colors, it also gives it almost a underwatery kind of vibe, like a bioluminescence to it, which obviously Lovecraft's like super big into like the ocean and the deep and stuff. So it kind of
Yeah.
fits the aesthetic. But yeah, this is an apple from D&D. That's what it reminded me of.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Oh, I could see it. I definitely could see it.
Yeah, like I bet like probably neither of you like were like, oh, we were using these as references, but like it just in a way came out and reminded me of these guys here. Especially this one and this aboleth right here. And to a lesser extent this one too. But outside of that, let me also show off Vic's new monster as well.
Huh.
Little Vic. Explain, good sir.
All right, so I've had this one for a while now. Ever since one of our last streams where we did designs. And we talked about like how we could just put a shovel like as a head.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, okay, what if I had a kaiju with a head that's like a straight up hammer? And so that's where I got the inspiration to make this guy. especially around the head, where I just took like a hammer. I started with a hammer, and then I just kaiju fight it in a way.
Huh.
Is the tail based like obviously you said the head is based on a hammer. Is the tail based on like an axe head?
I wanted to go with like the hammer theme, and I
Okay,
really
so
like
it's also kind
hammerhead
of like a
shark.
hammer. Oh, okay.
My thought was that it was some kind of shovel.
Yeah, I was thinking either it's gonna be there was an axe head because it looks almost like a double-sided axe, and then shovel was gonna be my second guess.
Yeah, I
But with
took
the
influence from like hammerhead sharks because I think they're really cool.
mm-hmm.
Understandable.
Yeah, no,
And
hammerheads are definitely
then
interesting creatures.
for other references, I looked at like Cloverfield concept art.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked one of them where it's like a slim, muscular build and with like big arms. And I looked at reference for like giant sloths with their claws and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to reference that with like his hands, his claws, and then I sort of winged the colors. Like I wanted to do like more, I guess, earthy tones,
Mm-hmm.
and then I put a little bit of orange, like on the big prongs on his head.
Yeah. I would say definitely if you translated the earthy tones also onto the back, I think that could help complete the design even more.
Mm.
Because like the head, excuse me, sorry. It's definitely the most well formed in terms of like fleshed out design, and I think just adding that extra bit of color helps elevate the design just a little bit more.
I would have liked to see with the coloring for the head as a bit of the pattern for the entire form.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It feels like without it, it just kind of feels like one part of the head you had a clear concept for it, but you weren't entirely sure where to go with the entire thing.
Yeah, like another thing is that even if you don't use the same kind of shapes on that were for the patterning on the head, even having like that same kind of orange dots all around it, sort of like a cheetah or something, could also work too.
Mm. Yeah, when it comes to the pattern, I like to think I take inspiration from like tiger sharks and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Like do a tiger shark design on the whole body. Like even if like the brown kind of gets lost in that, having a tiger shark design in terms of just coloration, I think would be really good for this.
Yeah.
And even if you weren't going to use it for this design, the design you showed on the Lost stream, which I'm going to be calling that stream now, the Lost stream, um, that design could also work really well with a tiger shark kind of coloration.
Cool.
And another thing is that since like you did like you were thinking just hammer and stuff too, if you had like maybe elbow spikes too, like curved upwards, that could also work too. Sort of like how when you pull out nails and stuff
Mm.
with a hammer, having something like that with the arms could work too.
I was thinking, try to make the arms a little shorter, so and try to focus more on the head feet hammer concept of like it bashes into things and headbutts them with his hammer head being really
I would
hard.
say I would do you one better. Maybe not make the arms smaller, maybe just make the head bigger so that he has a long reach and he can sort of
Mm.
reel his head back and hit, or maybe even elongating the neck a little bit more.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that works as well.
Is that something? Or like essentially, shorten the tail a tiny bit and use the remaining vertebrae and give it to his neck. That's just like what I'm thinking because I'm like, he has a really long tail, and I'm like, oh, if his head's just a little bigger and his neck is a little longer, that could really help bring the hammerhead aspect into it even more.
Mm.
And I think another monster that you could definitely get a lot of influence from, maybe adding a little bit more armor in some places, would be Barioth. I think definitely a few design aspects from Barioth could work really well for this guy.
Mm.
Obviously, Pierre, I know you know Barioth. What do you think on that?
I think that's I think that's Hmm. I'm not sure if I would say Barioth, but I think you're in the right direction.
What about
I don't say Barioth because I would describe like Barioth texturing as kind of almost wooden-ish,
mhm.
and this is a hammer, so I would think something a bit more, not like metal per se, but a bit more of something between of wood and steel.
When I'm thinking, and then when I'm thinking like something Monster Hunter related that's like metalish, I think Glavenus. Although Glavenus is a sword, though.
I was thinking more like Kushala Daora.
Yeah, that could definitely work too. Yeah.
Kushala Daora or Valstrax. Though I don't think Valstrax works since it's a bit more streamlined than what this shit intended to be.
Well, I know. Well, this design even here is kind of sort of lanky too. So Valstrax could like seeing what you could take from Valstrax could definitely work.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe like nah, that's a bit too much.
What were you
Oh.
thinking?
I was thinking like, I don't know, some kind of weird thruster in the back of his head or something. So like it has rocket powered headbutts or something.
Oh no! Speaking of rocket or just power, Brachydios could definitely be a monster that he could
Yeah,
definitely take a lot of good design from.
yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea.
Because I was like, Brachydios literally just has like a mallet boxing glove arms, so like taking something from that and translating it over into the head for this guy could totally work.
What do you think, Fender?
I mean, I'm looking at all like the designs you're suggesting. And I'm like, yeah, like I like a lot of these concepts.
Actually, Padilla, I don't think you're far off from like something that could work with like a rocket powered head, because since he has a pronged, his like the back of his skull is pronged like a hammer, so there could be essentially like a kind of jet there that could shoot out. Ooh, that would be interesting too. Sort of essentially if the vertebrae kind of goes into a certain position, there could be all the gas that like, because you're like, for example, I'm gonna do this right here for my fingers. Like the reason why your fingers crack is because you're popping, because you're pressing them, you're letting the gas release. So if it essentially if it had a unique system in its neck to where that gas could then pressurize out the back from like a pores or something, then therefore it could shoot its head forward kind of like a headbutt.
I like that.
Like I was just like I was about to just crack my knuckles, and we're thinking jet head gases, and I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that could totally work, especially with like how a neck works. It like could be some kind of anime kind of logic, but like I don't know, I just thought it was appropriate.
Yeah.
I think that works.
But actually, does he have a name?
I haven't really worked out a name for him yet. Like I guess working title like Hammerhead or something, but like I don't want to be too obvious or like I don't know.
Well, I forgot to workshop a name. Where does he like where in the world does he first appear?
Let's see. I haven't really done much world building on him yet. I sort of just went like just design first,
Nah, that's fair.
Gotcha, makes sense. But another thing I could definitely do is even though like I could see the aspect of like the back of the hammer, if you do something to make that even a little bit more natural, like crest it out more, that could also be something that could help out sort of make the design even more fleshed out. But I like it. It's definitely a very good starting concept. But let's move, and then I will show off mine. And there we are. So this is mine.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen this one.
This one's actually, it's taken a lot of aspects from a really older design, and I'm essentially translated it onto something new. Jaragath is it's part of a small fantasy story that I'm working on for publication. And just starting off with the name It's a combination of two different old or not Hebrew Canaanite cities and or just old Arabic cities. So Jero for Jericho and Gath for Gath. So combining the two essentially has a quasi Lovecraftian sort of name to them because the biggest influence was that originally I was just going to have this be my own design of Buckrug the water lizard from H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Doom That Came to Sarnath. But I thought that like even though that whole character's in the public domain, I just wanted to do something on my own. And if I wanted to do a Buckrug design, I could probably make it even more Lovecraftian. But essentially, like for this character, it's based on the Dragoon designs I did from a while back, which is why he still has some kind of patterning on the back. Head shape is similar. The split jaw, it's similar to both them and Zogra, which Zogra and the Dragoons were connected to. But in this case, I wanted to add a few smaller details to make him a little bit more watery. So I decided to give him a frill that is similar kind of to Gorgo's ears, which also look like fish fins. I added barbels onto the split jaws, and these since it's a fantasy world is magic, so whenever this thing is summoned on the full moon, it can use its barbels to like telepathically sense the intent of whoever it's judging. And I wanted to essentially keep with the standard kind of dinosaurian shape, but still have some quasi strange traits to it, which is why like the four eyes are positioned more towards the front while still kind of keeping a recognizable trait, because obviously Buckrug is called Buckrug the water lizard. So I've seen some designs of that character where it looks nothing like a lizard. And I would say like if he has a like specific moniker that is recognizable, then there's enough of him for someone to be like, yeah, that's a lizard without it like being so far off. Unlike with like a lot of Lovecraft's older stuff where like it's described as like unimaginable or like a creeping horror, and we don't really know necessarily what it looks like, so there's more ambiguity to work with. But yeah, in this case I also worked with some colors I haven't used a whole lot, so use some teals with some blacks to darken up the back, and it gives it a very mossy sort of underwatery sea foamy look with the this color right here. I was super surprised by how it looks on paper. The color's called Outer Space. It doesn't look super outer spacey to me. It like I thought it was gonna be like a darker black, but it's like almost like a bluish color, which is cool. And then I used a slate for the stomach, which was a really nice transitionary color, and it gives it a very sea water elements kind of vibe, while with the teal having a sort of almost outer worldly kind of vibe to him. And I also drew the Ibiak, which are his worshippers.
I would ask, why don't you just give him more of a sail fishy tail instead of just a standard monster tail?
I had done that, but because although he is related to the water and stuff, and like in the story he comes out of like a pool of water and stuff, I wanted to have things that like alluded to him having watery kind of inklings, but not necessarily like a biologically equipped aquatic creature. So like you're not going to see him swimming in the water. Essentially, when the Ibiak summon them, he's just going to come out of the water, and then once he's destroyed and killed everyone who's wronged the tribe, he just sort of descends back into the water, and you're not going to see him in the water. He's essentially just going to use the water as like a dimensional rift and then return to the plane of existence that he exists on.
So
because I
kind of
did,
like
I
the
did
breach.
play.
So like kind of like the breach from Pacific Rim, kind of.
With the breach is you see physically where the breach is underwater. In this case, there's no like dimensional tearing. Essentially, you would be looking at the water, and then his head is just going to appear out from the surface of the water, and then he's going to just come onto land. And then the moment he dips his head under the water, it's essentially like he's clipping through things, and it looks like it shouldn't happen, like a
So sort of just
Lovecraftian
like
entity should.
like manifesting.
Yeah, because like this is like obviously, as you can see how tall he is compared to a T-Rex and a person. This is just an aspect of Jaragath rather than like what its true size, quote unquote, would be.
My impression was that I was you way you described it. I thought like it like created like a whirlpool in like whatever
Oh
body of water
no,
that it
no,
rises out of.
yeah, because I know definitely the character is. It might appear in later stories, and um because this creature, although it's like threatening and stuff like that, it's very much a protector of its tribe of frogmen. So I wanted like its entrance to be less sort of violent summoning of the great outer gods and more like the exception to that. Because there's probably are going to be other old ones and like dark gods I'm going to design for this world. But like Buckrug in Lovecraft's story, Buckrug is a interesting great old one because of how benevolent it is, even though it's not benevolent towards humans because it wipes the men of Sarnath off the map. I wanted to have a lot of what this character looks like and sort of behaves with the world around him to be a little bit more palatable to a human, because like at the end of the story there is a character who is a witch hunter who ends up getting something that allows him to summon the aspect of Jaragath for future stories if I plan to continue forth with this beyond the first story he's in.
Hmm. Well, all I can really say is that I would like to lean a bit more into the what's like angler fishy feel to it, or
Mm-hmm.
like some like maybe some like I'm not sure if this concept of these images will be good at explaining my point, but
Yeah, send me anything, I'm totally down.
these
As for
Alright,
me, I
so
really like this design.
yeah, I see. No, definitely. I'm thinking that if I expand the world more, I might do like a full set of things on like my own take on the Dreamlands, and I might have more overtly fishy creatures being lesser aspects of Jaragath, um, or having a whole race of more anglerfishy creatures that sort of tend to the needs of this god.
so just to make it clear, this what we're seeing here is like the full thing and not like an aspect of it.
This is an aspect, definitely. I might do a like, if anything, I might actually have this be like a lesser aspect, and depending on who summons it, it might have different aspects depending on who's worshiping it. Or I might just have it be like another idea I was thinking of was that depending on different cultures, they'll see things in different ways, and therefore the aspects of the gods they summon will look different. So I was thinking about adding deep ones into this universe, and therefore I might have it be that Jaragath is called like Dagon or something to them. So then when it appears as Dagon, it's gonna look more fishy.
That makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When it comes to your world, Zim, is it like an adaptation of like Lovecraftian work or like
Oh,
inspired by it?
In this case, this is inspired by Lovecraft, this fantasy world I'm working on. For example, like the tabletop role-playing game and other universe I'm working on, the Kaiju 2000 universe, that is directly having Lovecraft works in it, because like Massachusetts is like the big sort of main area that a lot of stories take place in for like the first kind of phase I want to work on it. Like Innsmouth is a thing, Arkham is a actual town in Mass. I actually had to get rid of a couple of towns in real life Massachusetts for Arkham to make sense there.
Damn.
Miskatonic University is a thing. Yeah, well, I mean, like when you're a mass resident, it's you can sort of be like, okay, I can get rid of this town. I know there's nothing really important that I would use for a story anyway, so I can put Arkham there.
So like, do you think you're gonna add the Dover Demon?
Um, Actually, ironically enough, I was going to have the Dover Demons appear
I
as
was joking.
well, no, because like I was thinking like maybe they might not be demons. They might just be like actual just small aliens. Because there are aliens in like the Kaiju 2000 universe. There's another like whole sort of idea I had for an invasion, but like those are gonna be more like sci-fi little green men kind of aliens. While I do have like outer gods and shoggoths as a more fixture of the first phase of that kind of world I'm working on. Well,
Oh,
this is more
okay.
like Jaragath is more part of like a fantasy sort of like Conan the Barbarian, Solomon Kane sword and sorcery kind of world.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. Is that's why like he's even not like super big for like a kaiju. And then I also like another small detail I did was he's like only 16 meters, but like I used cubits instead of meters for his height because like cubits was a biblical measurement and I wanted it to feel more sort of historical in that sense. So instead of using meters, I used something that like we actually did use back in those days. But yeah, any other thoughts or?
No, I think that's about all all I said.
Awesome. Thank you. Let me stop sharing there. And that puts us actually at a perfect 3 hours. And we got to show off some new kaiju. I'm going to have a new person on. And I mean, just in general, any closing thoughts on everything we've kind of discussed for the night? Obviously, Potato, you're the new guy, so you'll be kind of closing us off to start with.
Remember, kids, Godzilla's racist, so you should cancel him.
And where can we find you if people want to chat with you about monster designs and the like?
I have a Twitter.
Dun dun dun. A bird people app. And where is that? And what is that Twitter called?
It is at Beans Crocodile.
Dun 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 dun. Dun. And Vic, where can we find you, my good man?
As always, you can find me on Twitter as either at JaCrispyVic or G98 Appreciator. Also on YouTube, gonna be working on more stuff to pump out. On YouTube, I'm a Kaiju Not. Just gonna be working on lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then for anyone, if you can't find Kaiju Not just by looking it up, what you can also do is that if you check my channels tab on my channel, if you look at the Sauce channels I list, he is the 4th channel there, so you can sub to him from there if need be.
Just to let you know, if you just have the idea of coming to my Twitter, all you're gonna see is memes and just random stuff I retweet because I thought it was neat.
The only good thing Twitter is good for memes.
Exactly.
And art. There's a lot of good art on Twitter too.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you can find me at Zimzilla99 almost everywhere on the interwebs. Stay tuned. I have some videos that I'm almost done and I cannot wait to show those to you guys. Throw me a bone on coffee to help with the channel. Every little bit helps and it just really helps me focus more on these things. And without further ado, I hope everyone had an amazing Godzilla day, and I cannot wait for the new stuff that has to come. And y'all have a good night.
And remember, like, comment, and subscribe. We need the money.
Take care, guys.
Adios.